Under a blood-red moon, a wolfless girl stands before the future king of the pack. The mate bond just ignited between them, raw, electric, undeniable. For one heartbeat, destiny seems possible. Then he speaks 3 words that shatter her world. I reject you. The crowd gasps. Elders look away. Some laugh. Because she's nothing. No rank, no power, no wolf. Just a stain the pack tolerated. But as she collapses, her eyes flash with something ancient. Something that will make them all regret this night. Stay until the end to see how the rejected becomes the reckoning. Drop a like and comment what city you're watching from. The clearing stank of sweat and anticipation. Alara Voss could taste it on her tongue. Metallic, sharp, mixed with the smoke from the ceremonial fires that ringed the sacred ground. 200 wolves packed shoulder to shoulder, their eyes glowing amber and gold in the firelight, their breath misting in the cold mountain air. The bonding rite. The most sacred ceremony in the Shadow Peak territory. The night when fate reached down and tied souls together with threads that couldn't be cut. She stood at the edge of the inner circle, her bare feet numb against the frozen earth, wearing the thin white ceremonial dress that marked her as unmated, unclaimed, available, worthless. Look at her, someone whispered behind her, a woman's voice dripping with contempt. Standing there like she actually has a chance. Pathetic, another agreed. 22 years old and still nothing. No shift, no wolf. What the hell is she even doing here? Alara's jaw clenched. She didn't turn around. She'd learned years ago that acknowledging them only made it worse. The whispers, the sneers, the casual cruelty that wolves inflicted on anything they considered weak. She'd endured it her entire life. The orphan girl with no memory of her parents, no wolf spirit inside her, no explanation for why she existed at all. The pack elders said she was cursed. The warriors said she was broken. The children said she was a ghost. Only Elder Moira had ever shown her kindness, and even that came with warnings. Keep your head down, child. Don't draw attention. Survive until you're old enough to leave. But Alara couldn't leave. Not yet. Because 3 months ago, something had changed. She'd started having dreams. Not normal dreams. Visions so vivid they left her gasping, her sheets soaked with sweat, her skin burning like she'd been thrown into a fire. In them, she saw herself standing in a throne room made of black stone and silver light. Saw herself wearing a crown that pulsed with ancient power. Saw wolves, thousands of them, bowing before her. And she saw him, Kyle Dracor. Kyle, the future Alpha King of the Shadow Peak territory. The most powerful wolf in 500 miles. Untouchable. Worshipped. Feared by enemies and allies alike. In her dreams, he looked at her like she was the only thing in the world that mattered, which was insane. Because in real life, Kyle Dracor didn't know she existed. Why would he? She was nobody. A servant girl who cleaned the pack house and kept her mouth shut and tried not to get kicked when she crossed paths with wolves who resented her presence. But the dreams kept coming, and with them came something else. A pull. A magnetic force that dragged her toward the ceremonial grounds tonight, even though every logical part of her brain screamed that she should stay home. That showing up to the bonding rite without a wolf was humiliation waiting to happen. Silence! Elder Thorn's voice cut through the murmurs like a blade. He stood at the center of the circle, his white hair gleaming in the moonlight, his ceremonial robes embroidered with silver wolves. At 70 years old, he was the oldest wolf in the territory, the keeper of their laws, the voice of tradition. And he hated Alara with a passion that bordered on religious fervor. The blood moon rises, Thorn continued, his voice carrying across the clearing. On this sacred night, the moon goddess reveals the bonds between souls. Mates will recognize mates. Destinies will align. The future of our pack will be forged. The crowd shifted, wolves pressing closer, their excitement building. This was what they came for, the moment when the magic happened. When 2 wolves would lock eyes across the circle and feel the bond snap into place, an invisible rope tying them together for life. It was supposed to be beautiful, romantic, inevitable. Alara had seen it happen a dozen times over the years. The sudden recognition, the shocked joy, the way mated pairs would crash together like gravity had reversed, unable to stay apart even for a second. She'd also seen what happened when bonds formed between mismatched wolves, between warriors and omegas, between noble families and common blood. The pack didn't care about love. They cared about power, about bloodlines, about maintaining the hierarchy that kept the strong on top and the weak underneath. "Let the ceremony begin," Thorn said. The drums started, a deep primal rhythm that seemed to sync with Alara's heartbeat. Around the circle, wolves began to move, circling each other, scenting, searching for that electric pull that would indicate a bond. Alara stayed still. She had no wolf to scent with, no instincts to guide her. She was just... The air changed. It happened so fast she almost missed it. One second she was standing there feeling sorry for herself, and the next, every hair on her body stood up. Her skin flushed hot. Her heart kicked into overdrive, slamming against her ribs so hard she thought it might crack them. And she smelled him. Pine. Smoke. Something dark and wild that made her head spin. Her eyes snapped up, and there he was. Kyle Drakor stood on the opposite side of the circle, and he was staring directly at her. No, that wasn't possible. He was 6'4" of pure predator, all lean muscle and controlled violence wrapped in human skin. Black hair that fell just past his collar, eyes so pale they looked silver in the moonlight, a face that could have been carved from stone, sharp jaw, high cheekbones, a mouth that had probably never smiled in its life. He wore black, always black, a fitted shirt that did nothing to hide the power in his shoulders and chest, pants that looked expensive and practical at the same time. No ceremonial robes for him. Kale Drakor didn't need costumes to command respect. People feared him just by existing, and right now those silver eyes were locked on Alara like she was prey he'd been hunting for years. The bond hit her like a freight train. It wasn't gentle, wasn't soft. It was a violent electric shock that started in her chest and exploded outward, racing through her veins like liquid fire. She gasped, her knees almost buckling, her hands flying to her chest because it felt like something was trying to claw its way out of her ribcage. Across the circle, Kael's expression didn't change, but she saw it, the slight widening of his eyes, the way his body went rigid, the muscle that jumped in his jaw. He felt it too. The clearing went silent. 200 wolves held their breath, their eyes darting between Alara and Kael, confusion rippling through the crowd like a wave. Because this wasn't supposed to happen. The future Alpha King didn't get matched with the wolfless orphan. The strongest wolf in the territory didn't bond with the weakest creature in the pack. This was wrong. This was impossible. This was... No. Kael's voice was cold, flat, emotionless. He took one step forward, and the crowd parted for him like water. Wolves practically threw themselves out of his path, their heads lowering in automatic submission. He moved with the fluid grace of an apex predator, every step deliberate, every movement screaming danger. Alara couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The bond was screaming at her to go to him, to close the distance, to touch him and confirm what her body already knew. He stopped 3 feet away. Up close, he was even more terrifying. She had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes, and what she saw there made her blood run cold. Disgust. Pure, undiluted revulsion. "You feel it," she whispered. It wasn't a question. His lip curled. "I feel a mistake." The bond pulsed between them, pulling tighter, trying to drag them together. Alara's hands shook. Her chest hurt. Everything in her body was screaming that this was right, that he was hers, that they were supposed to... "I, Kyle Drakor, future alpha of the Shadow Peak Pack," his voice rang out across the clearing, formal and final, "reject you as my mate." The words hit her like a physical blow. Gasps erupted around them. Someone screamed. Elder Thorn made a strangled noise that might have been shock or satisfaction. She couldn't tell. Alara stared at him, her mind refusing to process what he'd just said. "What?" "You heard me." Kale's eyes were ice. "I reject the bond. I reject you. Whatever cosmic joke put us together ends now." "You can't," her voice cracked. "The bond, it's sacred. You can't just... Watch me." He turned away. Just like that. Dismissed her like she was nothing. Like the bond screaming between them meant less than dirt under his boots. And the pain hit. It felt like someone had reached into her chest and ripped her heart out through her ribs. The bond, that electric burning connection, twisted violently, turning from fire to acid. It didn't disappear. It corroded, rotted, became something toxic and wrong that ate at her insides like poison. Alara's legs gave out. She hit the frozen ground hard. her hand slamming into the dirt, her body convulsing as the rejection tore through her. She'd heard stories about rejected bonds, about how the pain could last for days, weeks, how some wolves never recovered, how it felt like dying slowly, piece by piece, while your soul screamed for something it could never have. They hadn't lied. Through the haze of agony, she heard voices. Did that actually just happen? The future alpha rejected his mate? Look at her. She's pathetic. This is what happens when you let defects participate in sacred ceremonies. She should have known better than to show up here. Laughter. Someone was laughing. Elara's vision blurred. Tears streamed down her face, hot and bitter. She tried to stand, but her body wouldn't cooperate. The bond kept twisting, kept breaking, kept shredding everything inside her, and Kael just walked away. She watched him through the crowd, his broad back disappearing into the darkness beyond the fires. He didn't look back, didn't hesitate, didn't show even a flicker of pain or regret. He rejected her, and it cost him nothing, while it was destroying her. Get her out of here. Elder Thorn's voice was sharp with distaste. This ceremony is sacred. We won't have it tainted by this. Hands grabbed her arms, rough, uncaring. Two warriors hauled her to her feet, her legs dragging as they pulled her away from the circle. She couldn't fight them, couldn't do anything except sob as the pain kept building, kept burning, kept... Her eyes flashed. Just for a second. A burst of light so bright it lit up the clearing like lightning. The warriors dropped her, stumbling back. What the fuck? Did you see that? Her eyes, they weren't... But Elara didn't hear the rest. The world tilted sideways, and everything went black. Quote, she woke up in her cabin, the tiny one-room shack at the edge of pack territory that she'd called home for as long as she could remember. Drafty, cold, the roof leaked when it rained, but it was hers, the only place in this entire territory where she didn't have to watch her back every second. Morning light filtered through the cracks in the walls. Her body ached like she'd been beaten with rocks. The bond, that toxic, corrupted thing, still pulsed in her chest, but the sharp agony had faded to a dull, constant throb. She sat up slowly, every muscle screaming in protest. Someone had left her on the floor, hadn't even bothered to put her in bed. There was dirt under her fingernails, blood on her dress, bruises forming on her arms where the warriors had grabbed her. The events of last night crashed back. The bond, Kael, the rejection. Fresh tears burned her eyes, but she blinked them back. Crying wouldn't change anything. It never did. A knock on the door made her jump. Elara? Elder Moira's voice, gentle, concerned. Child, are you awake? Elara stood on shaking legs and opened the door. Moira was 80 if she was a day, her face weathered like old leather, her eyes cloudy with cataracts. But she was the only wolf in this pack who'd ever shown Elara kindness, who'd taught her to read, who'd slipped her extra food when she was starving, who looked at her like she was a person instead of a problem. Oh, child. Moira's expression crumpled. She reached out, cupping Elara's face with trembling hands. I'm so sorry. Don't. Elara's voice came out hoarse. Please don't. The council met this morning, Moira said quietly. They've made a decision. Of course they had. The Pack Council, 7 of the most powerful wolves in the territory, led by Elder Thorn and Kael's father, Alpha Marcus. They made all the decisions, decided who lived where, who mated whom, who was valuable, and who was expendable. And Elara had always been expendable. They're exiling you, Moira whispered, effective immediately. The words didn't hurt as much as they should have. Maybe because part of her had been expecting this. Maybe because after last night, nothing could hurt worse than what she'd already survived. When? Elara asked. Dawn tomorrow. Moira's hand shook. They're calling it a mercy, saying that keeping you here after what happened would only cause more pain. A mercy? Elara laughed, and it sounded broken even to her own ears. Right. There's more. Moira glanced over her shoulder, making sure they were alone. Elder Thorn wanted you executed, said you were an abomination, that your very existence insults the moon goddess. Ice slid down Elara's spine. And? Kael stopped him. That made Elara's breath catch. What? He invoked Alpha's privilege, said that as the wronged party in the bond, he had the right to choose your punishment. Moira's eyes were sad. He chose exile instead of death. Alara didn't know what to do with that information. Didn't know if it made things better or worse. Kael had rejected her so brutally last night, humiliated her in front of the entire pack, and now he'd, what, shown her mercy? Or just extended her suffering? You need to leave tonight, Moira said urgently. Don't wait for tomorrow. Pack whatever you can carry and go. Get as far from this territory as possible. Where am I supposed to go? The question came out flat, hollow. I have no pack, no protection. Rogues will rip me apart the second I cross the border. Then you'll have to be smarter than them. Moira pressed something into her hand, a small leather pouch that clinked with coins. It's not much, but it's all I have. Alara stared at the pouch, her throat tight. I can't take this. You can, and you will. Moira's voice was firm. Listen to me, child. I don't know what you are. I don't know why you've never shifted, but I've seen the way you survive in this pack, the way you endure things that would break normal wolves. There's something in you, something strong. I'm weak, Alara whispered. Everyone says so. Everyone's a fool. Moira gripped her shoulders. You're alive, aren't you? After 22 years in a pack that wanted you dead from the moment you were born? After last night? You're still standing. That's not weakness, Alara. That's steel. The old woman pulled her into a hug, brief, fierce, smelling like herbs and wood smoke. Go, she whispered, and don't come back. Then she was gone, disappearing down the path before Alara could respond. Alara stood in her doorway, clutching the pouch of coins, staring at the forest that bordered pack territory. Exile. She'd never left Shadow Peak lands, never been beyond the borders. Everything she knew, as terrible as it was, existed here. Out there was the unknown. Out there she was prey. Out there she would die. The bond pulsed in her chest, still toxic, still wrong, still connecting her to a wolf who'd thrown her away like garbage. And something inside her, something that had been quiet her whole life, stirred. Not her wolf. She'd never had one. This was different, older, angrier. It whispered in a voice she didn't recognize. They think you're weak. Prove them wrong. Ikek. She left at midnight. One backpack, 2 changes of clothes, a hunting knife she'd stolen from the pack armory years ago, the pouch of coins, and a water flask that was already half empty. No goodbyes, no final looks at the cabin, no sentimentality, just survival. The forest was dark and dense, the trees pressing close like they wanted to swallow her whole. Alara moved quickly, following the paths she'd memorized from years of scavenging for firewood. Every snap of a twig made her jump. Every owl hoot set her heart racing. She was prey now, officially. No pack sent to protect her, no territory to claim her. Just a wolfless girl stumbling through the darkness, waiting for something with teeth to find her. The border was marked by a line of stones painted white. She'd seen it before from a distance. Wolves were forbidden from crossing without permission from the Alpha. Leaving pack territory without authorization was a death sentence. But she was already exiled, already dead to them. Alara stepped over the stones. The pack bond, the thin, barely there connection that tied every wolf to their territory, snapped. It felt like losing the last piece of home she had. Even though that home had been hell, even though they'd never wanted her, it still hurt. She kept walking. Hours passed. The forest grew wilder, the trees older, the sounds stranger, and the thing inside her kept whispering, "Keep going. Don't stop. Find it." "Find what?" Alara muttered. The voice didn't answer. Dawn broke gray and cold. Her feet were blistered. Her legs screamed. The bond with Kael throbbed like an infected wound, making her nauseous. She needed to rest, needed water, needed... The growl came from her left, low, threatening, hungry. Alara spun, her hand flying to the knife at her belt. 3 wolves emerged from the underbrush. Not pack wolves, rogues. Their fur was matted, their eyes wild, their ribs showing through mangy coats, and they were looking at her like she was dinner. "Easy," Alara said, her voice shaking. "I'm just passing through. I'm not—" The largest one lunged. She barely got the knife up in time. The blade caught its shoulder and it yelped, twisting midair. The other two circled, snarling, working together like they'd done this before. Alara's heart hammered. She couldn't fight three rogues, couldn't outrun them. Couldn't... Heat exploded in her chest. Not the bond. Something else. Something that felt like her blood had turned to fire. Her eyes flashed. The same burst of light from last night. The rogues froze. Their snarls cut off mid-breath. Their eyes went wide. And then, impossible, they lowered their heads, submitting to her. Alara stared, her knife still raised, her mind refusing to process what she was seeing. What? The largest rogue whimpered. Actually, whimpered. Then it turned and bolted into the forest, the other two scrambling after it. Gone. Just like that. Alara stood there, breathing hard, her hands shaking. What the hell just happened? The heat in her chest faded, leaving her cold and confused and more terrified than before. Because wolves didn't submit to humans. They didn't submit to anything except stronger wolves. And she wasn't a wolf at all. So what was she? The voice whispered again, smug and satisfied. Finally starting to understand, aren't you? Alara looked down at her hands. They were trembling, normal, human. But for just a second, when her eyes had flashed, she'd felt different, powerful, wrong, ancient. What's happening to me? She whispered. The voice didn't answer, but deep in the forest something else did. A howl, long and mournful and so far away it might have been a ghost, except Alara felt it in her bones, felt it calling her. Not away from Shadow Peak territory, toward something else. Something that had been waiting for her long before Kael Drakor rejected her in front of the entire pack. She adjusted her backpack, turned toward the sound, and started walking. The ruins waited 3 days north. She didn't know how she knew that, didn't question the certainty in her gut, just followed the pull. The same magnetic force that had dragged her to the bonding rite. Except this time, it wasn't pulling her toward a mate, it was pulling her toward answers. The forest changed as she traveled. The trees grew massive, ancient pines that blocked out the sun, their trunks wider than houses. The underbrush thinned, the animal sounds disappeared. She should have been terrified. Instead, she felt calm, like she was finally going home. On the third day, she found them. The ruins rose from the forest floor like broken teeth, stone walls covered in moss and vines, archways that led to nothing, courtyards choked with weeds. And at the center, barely visible through the overgrowth, a massive gate made of black iron. It was closed, sealed, forgotten. Alara approached slowly, her heart pounding for reasons she couldn't name. The gate was covered in symbols she didn't recognize, not pack markings, not anything she'd ever seen in Elder Moira's books. These were older, stranger, wrong in a way that made her skin crawl and her blood sing at the same time. She reached out, her fingers brushing the cold iron. The symbols lit up. Silver light blazed across the gate, racing along the ancient markings, pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. The ground trembled, the air crackled with power. And the gate opened. Not slowly, not creaking with age. It swung wide like it had been waiting for her, like it recognized her. Alara stepped through. The courtyard beyond was massive, empty, silent, but not dead. She could feel it, the power humming beneath the stones. The magic saturating every inch of this place. In the center stood a pedestal, black stone, waist high, and on top, a crown, silver, delicate, beautiful in a way that made her chest ache. Alara walked toward it like she was in a trance. Every step felt inevitable, predestined, like her entire life had been leading to this exact moment. She reached the pedestal. The crown gleamed in the faint light filtering through the trees, and beneath it, carved into the stone in letters so old they'd almost worn away. The lunar sovereign returns. Alara's hand shook as she reached for the crown. The moment her fingers touched the metal, the world exploded. Power slammed into her like a tidal wave. Not gentle, not kind. It was violent and overwhelming, and so ancient it made her bones ache. Her back arched, her mouth opened in a silent scream. Light poured from her eyes, not just a flash this time, but a sustained blaze that lit up the entire ruin. Images crashed through her mind. A woman who looked like her, wearing the same crown, standing before thousands of bowing wolves. A throne room carved from living shadow and moonlight. A war. Blood, betrayal, and then burial. The crown hidden, the bloodline erased, the very memory of what they'd been scrubbed from history. Because the wolves couldn't rule if something stronger existed, so they destroyed it, destroyed her ancestors, tried to make sure this power never woke again. But they'd failed, because Alara was still here, the last heir, the last sovereign, and the power that had been sleeping in her blood her entire life, suppressed, dormant, waiting, finally woke up. Her body changed, not into a wolf, into something else. Something the pack wolves had no name for because they'd tried so hard to forget it existed. Her bones didn't break and reform. They reshaped, strengthened. Her muscles didn't tear, they refined. Her senses sharpened to a degree that made her old human perception seem like blindness. And her eyes, they eclipsed. Not just glowing, not just bright. They became silver mirrors that reflected the moon itself, even in daylight. When the power finally released her, Alara collapsed to her knees, gasping, her entire body shaking. But she wasn't weak anymore, wasn't breakable, wasn't the pathetic wolfless girl they'd thrown away. She stood slowly, and the ruins responded. The vines pulled back, the stones straightened. The ancient magic that had kept this place hidden and protected recognized its true ruler, and bowed. Alara looked down at her hands. They were steady now, strong. She could feel it, the power thrumming through every cell. Not borrowed, not conditional, hers. And with it came knowledge, understanding. The memories of every lunar sovereign who'd come before her, downloaded into her mind like data into a machine. She knew what she was now, knew what she could do, knew what the wolves had taken when they'd erased her bloodline, and she knew exactly how to take it back. The toxic bond with Kael pulsed in her chest, weaker now because the power inside her was so much stronger than any mate bond could ever be. But it was still there, still connecting her to him, and she smiled. Not with joy, with promise, because Kael Draker thought he'd rejected her, thought he'd gotten rid of a problem, thought he was safe. He had no idea what he'd actually done. No idea that his rejection had been the catalyst that woke something older than his entire bloodline. No idea that the girl he'd thrown away was about to become the end of everything he thought he understood about power. Alara picked up the crown from the pedestal. It was warm in her hands. Alive. She placed it on her head. And the ruins, this forgotten stronghold of the lunar sovereigns, answered with a sound like thunder. Deep in Shadow Peak territory, 300 miles away, Kael Drakor gasped and doubled over in his office. The bond twisted violently, but this time it wasn't breaking, it was changing. And for the first time since he'd rejected her, he felt genuine fear, because the pathetic, powerless girl he'd dismissed was still there on the other end of that connection. But she wasn't pathetic anymore. She was something that made his alpha wolf whimper and retreat, something that his instincts recognized as a threat on a level he'd never encountered. He'd rejected her because she was beneath him. Now she was above him, and she was coming back. Kael Draker's office looked like a war zone, papers scattered across the floor, a chair overturned, the heavy oak desk shoved 3 feet from where it usually sat. And in the center of it all, the future Alpha King stood bent over, one hand braced against the wall, the other clutching his chest like someone had driven a spike through his sternum. The bond was on fire. Not the dull, toxic ache he'd been enduring for 3 days since the rejection. This was different, active, aggressive, like the other end had woken up and started pulling back with a force that made his knees buckle. "Fuck," he gasped, his breath coming in harsh pants. His wolf, usually a constant, dominant presence in his mind, was silent. No. Not silent, cowering, pressed into the furthest corner of his consciousness like a beaten dog. That alone should have been impossible. Kael's wolf was an alpha. Pure dominant bloodline going back 12 generations. It didn't cower, it didn't retreat. It sure as hell didn't whimper like it was doing right now. The door slammed open. Kael! His beta, Darius Kane, filled the doorway, 6'2" of solid muscle, sandy hair pulled back, green eyes sharp with concern. What the fuck's happening? Half the pack house felt that. Get out! Kael growled. Like hell. Darius crossed the room in 3 strides. You look like you're having a heart attack. I said get out. And I said like hell. Darius grabbed his shoulder. Talk to me. Is it the bond? Is she... The name hung unspoken between them. Alara, the wolfless girl, the rejected mate who should have been dead or dying in the woods by now. Except she clearly wasn't. Kale straightened slowly, forcing his body to cooperate even though every instinct screamed at him to submit, to bow, to acknowledge whatever the fuck had just happened on the other end of that bond. "She's alive," he said flatly. Darius's eyebrows shot up. "You can still feel her?" "Yeah." "Rejection bonds don't work like that. Once you reject, I know how it fucking works." Kale's voice came out harsher than intended. He took a breath, trying to center himself. "It should have faded by now, should be barely noticeable. But it's not. It's stronger." Stronger how? Kale didn't know how to explain it. The bond before had been like a rope connecting them, raw, intense, undeniable. After the rejection, it had turned into barbed wire, cutting into him every time he moved. But now? Now it felt like a chain, heavy, unbreakable, and pulling in a direction he didn't want to go. "She's different," he said quietly. Something changed. Darius studied him with those sharp green eyes that missed nothing. "Different how?" "I don't know." Kyle moved to the window, staring out at the Shadow Peak territory spread below. Dawn was breaking over the mountains, painting everything gold and purple. His kingdom, his birthright, everything he'd trained his entire life to rule. "But my wolf's scared of her." "That's not possible." "Yeah." Kale's laugh was bitter. "Tell him that." Silence stretched between them. Darius was one of the few wolves in the territory who could stand in a room with Kyle and not automatically submit. They'd been friends since they were kids, before ranks and bloodlines mattered, before Kale became the future Alpha King and Darius became his second-in-command. "The council's asking questions," Darius said finally, "about what happened at the bonding rite." "Let them ask. Kyle, I don't owe them explanations." He turned from the window. "I rejected a defective bond. End of story." "Is it?" Darius crossed his arms. "Because it doesn't feel ended. It feels like you just pissed off something we don't understand." "She was nothing," Kale snapped. "A wolfless orphan with no power, no family, no—" Another pulse through the bond, sharper this time, almost mocking. Kale's jaw clenched. "She was nothing," he repeated, but the words felt hollow even to his own ears. "Was." Darius caught the past tense. "What is she now?" That was the question, wasn't it? Before Kale could answer, footsteps echoed in the hallway. Heavy, deliberate, the kind that announced power before the person even entered the room. Alpha Marcus Dracor appeared in the doorway. Kale's father was 62 and looked 40, still broad-shouldered, still muscled, still carrying the kind of presence that made grown wolves drop their eyes. Gray threaded through his dark hair, and his face had settled into permanent lines of command and control. He took one look at the destroyed office, and his expression hardened. "Darius," he said calmly, "leave us." It wasn't a request. Darius glanced at Kale, who gave a slight nod. The beta left, closing the door behind him. Marcus waited until the footsteps faded before speaking. "You're losing control." Kale's spine stiffened. "I'm fine." "You're clearly not." Marcus moved into the room with the fluid grace of a predator. 3 days since the rejection, and you look worse than you did the night it happened. The bond should be fading. Instead, you're in here destroying furniture. "It's handled." "Is it?" Marcus stopped in front of him. At 6'4", Kyle matched his father's height, but Marcus still somehow looked larger. "Because the pack is talking. Wondering why their future alpha rejected his true mate. Wondering if you're weak." That word, weak, hit like a slap. "I rejected her because she was beneath me," Kyle said coldly. "Because bonding with a wolfless orphan would have destroyed this pack's credibility. You know that. The council knows that. Anyone with half a brain knows that." "I agree." Marcus's voice was mild. "You made the right call." Kale blinked. He'd expected an argument, expected his father to tear into him for causing chaos during a sacred ceremony. "Then what's the problem?" "The problem," Marcus said, "is that you're still connected to her, still feeling her through a bond you supposedly severed. That makes you vulnerable." "I'm not." "You are." Marcus's eyes were hard. Vulnerability in an alpha is blood in the water. Our enemies will smell it. Our allies will question their loyalty. And our own pack will start wondering if you're strong enough to lead them. Kale's hands curled into fists. I am strong enough. Then prove it. Marcus moved to the overturned chair, righting it with one hand. The girl is exiled. She's 3 days gone. If she's still alive out there, she won't be for long. Rogues, starvation, exposure. Something will kill her. Good. Is it? Marcus sat, crossing one ankle over his knee. Because if she dies while you're still bonded, even a rejected bond, it could damage you. The pain of a mate's death is, I know what it is. Kael had seen it before. Wolves who lost their mates. The way it broke them. Turned them feral or hollow or both. So you understand the risk. Marcus studied him. Which is why I'm giving you a choice. What choice? Send hunters after her. Make sure she's dead. Quick, clean, no suffering. Marcus's voice was clinical, practical. Or wait and hope nature does the job for you. But if you wait and she survives, if she becomes someone else's problem, you'll still be tied to her, still weak. The bond pulsed again. Not painful this time, just present, reminding him she was out there, alive, changed, dangerous. His wolf stirred slightly, and the feeling that came through wasn't agreement. It was warning. I'm not sending hunters after a defenseless girl, Kael said. She's not a girl, she's a liability. Marcus stood. And you're too soft to do what needs to be done. Soft? Kael's voice dropped to something lethal. Choose your next words carefully, father. They stared at each other. Two alphas. Two dominant wolves who'd spent Kael's entire life dancing around the question of who was actually stronger. Marcus smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. You're my son, my heir, and I'm proud of what you've become. He moved toward the door. But pride doesn't win wars. Strength does. Remember that. He left. Kael stood in the wreckage of his office, his father's words echoing in his head. Send hunters. Make sure she's dead. Quick. Clean. It was logical, strategic, the smart play for an alpha who needed to protect his position. But every time he tried to seriously consider it, his wolf snarled in fury. Not at Alara. At him. Like killing her would be the worst mistake he could possibly make. Which made no sense. She was nothing. A wolfless orphan who'd been a thorn in the pack's side for 22 years. Her death would solve problems, not create them. So why did the idea make him feel like he was about to cross a line he couldn't uncross? The bond pulsed again. Stronger, more insistent. And underneath it, he felt something new. Amusement. Like she knew exactly what he was thinking and found it hilarious. Fuck you, he muttered to the empty air. The amusement got stronger. 300 miles north, Alara stood in the center of the ruins and laughed. Not because anything was funny. Because the alternative was screaming, and she'd done enough of that over the past 3 days. The crown sat on her head like it had always belonged there. Light, comfortable, warm. And with it came power that made her previous life feel like a fever dream. She could feel everything. The forest around her, every tree, every animal, every breath of wind. The earth beneath her feet, humming with ancient magic. The moon, even though it was daylight, pulling at her blood like a tide. And Kael. The bond connected them still, but it had changed. Before, it had felt like he was on the other end of a rope, yanking her around. Now? Now she was the one holding the leash. She could feel his confusion, his anger, the way his wolf cowered from something it didn't understand. Good. Let him be afraid. Let him wonder what he'd rejected. Let him lie awake at night knowing he'd made the worst mistake of his life. Enjoying yourself? Alara spun. A woman stood at the edge of the courtyard, tall, elegant, wearing a dress that looked like it was made from shadows and starlight. Her hair was silver, not gray, but actually silver, like moonlight given form. And her eyes were the same eclipsed silver that Alara saw when she looked in reflective surfaces now. Who are you? Alara's hand went to the knife at her belt. Not that it would do much good against whatever this was. Lyra Vex, the woman smiled. Former sovereign, current ghost, depending on how you define these things. Alara's breath caught. You're dead? Yes, but the crown has a way of preserving us. Lyra moved closer, and Alara realized she could see through her, translucent, spectral. We're bound to it. The memories of every sovereign who came before, here to guide, to teach, to make sure the bloodline doesn't fuck up again. Again? We lost, Lyra said bluntly, in case the whole buried ruins and erased from history thing didn't make that clear. The wolves won, killed most of us, scattered the rest, hid the crown so deep they thought no one would ever find it. But I did. You were led to it. Lyra stopped a few feet away. The crown calls to its heirs, has been calling to you your whole life, probably. You just didn't know how to listen. Elara thought about the dreams. The pull. The certainty that had dragged her north even when logic said she should run anywhere else. What am I? She asked quietly. Lunar sovereign, the true apex of our world. Lyra's smile was sharp. Wolves like to think they're the top of the food chain, that their alphas are the ultimate predators. But they're wrong. We're older, stronger. We don't just command wolves, we command the moon itself. That's impossible. Is it? Lyra gestured to the ruins. You opened a gate that's been sealed for 200 years. You survived a rejection bond that should have killed you. You made 3 rogues submit without shifting. What part of that screams possible to you? Elara had no answer for that. The wolves buried us because they were scared, Lyra continued. Because as long as sovereigns existed, alphas were just pretenders playing king, so they killed us, all of us. Except they missed one, Elara finished. They missed several, actually, but most of the bloodline died out naturally over the centuries. You're the first one in 200 years to actually find the crown and wake the power. Lyra's expression turned serious, which means you have a choice to make. What choice? Hide. Take the crown, bury it again, live your life somewhere far from wolf politics. Lyra paused. Or go back. Show them what they tried to destroy. Take what's yours. Elara's jaw clenched. They exiled me. They threw you away like garbage, Lyra corrected. That alpha of yours, Kyle Drekor, rejected you in front of your entire pack. Humiliated you. Made you feel worthless. The memory burned. The cold disgust in his eyes. The casual cruelty in his voice. The way he'd turned and walked away like she was nothing. So what do you want me to do? Elara asked. March back there and what? Challenge him? Fight the entire pack? You wouldn't have to fight them. Lyra's smile was predatory. That's the beautiful part. You're a sovereign. Your power doesn't come from physical strength. It comes from dominance, from the natural order. Wolves submit to you because their instincts tell them you're above them in the hierarchy. The rogues, Elara said slowly. Exactly. They submitted because their wolves recognized what you are. Lyra moved closer. Now imagine what would happen if you walked into Shadow Peak territory wearing that crown, if you let your power show. Every wolf there would feel it, their alphas, their warriors, their council. They'd all feel the instinct to bow. The idea was intoxicating and terrifying. Kael would kill me before I got that far. Would he? Lyra's eyes glittered. You're bonded to him. Rejected or not, that connection exists. And right now you're stronger than he is. Your power is active. His is stagnant. If you pushed, if you really used the bond, you could bring him to his knees without laying a finger on him. Elara's pulse quickened. How? The same way you feel him right now. That awareness. That connection. Lyra's voice dropped to something intimate, conspiratorial. You can push thoughts through it. Emotions. Commands. A strong enough sovereign can dominate their mate completely through a bond. Make them do anything. That's... Elara stopped. Was about to say wrong. But was it? Kael had rejected her, destroyed her in front of everyone she'd ever known. Why shouldn't she have the power to strike back? He hurt you, Lyra said softly. He deserves to know what that feels like. The bond pulsed. Elara focused on it, really focused, for the first time since the crown had awakened her power. And she felt him. Kael. In his office. Angry, confused, scared in a way he'd probably never admit. She pushed. Just a little, just a test. 300 miles south, Kael gasped and staggered. Elara felt his shock through the bond, felt the exact moment he realized she'd done that deliberately. She smiled and pushed again. Harder. This time, she sent a single thought. Remember me? He thought. Kael hit his knees. The command came through the bond like a freight train. Not words, but pure dominance. The kind of pressure that made his wolf whine and his body move without permission. His office door burst open. Darius was there, eyes wide. "Kael, what? Get out," Kael managed. His voice sounded strangled. "You're on the ground." "I'm not. Get out!" Darius flinched, then left, slamming the door. Kael fought to breathe, to think, to regain control of his own body. Through the bond, he felt her. Not weak, not broken, not dying in the woods like she was supposed to be. Strong, amused, in control. "What are you?" He thought at her, not sure if she'd hear it. The answer came back instantly, wrapped in feminine satisfaction and dark promise. "Everything you threw away." The pressure released. Kael collapsed forward, catching himself on his hands, sweat dripping onto the hardwood floor. His wolf was a mess, torn between fury at being dominated and something that felt dangerously close to submission. No, not submission, recognition, like his wolf knew what she was and accepted it on an instinctual level that his human pride refused to acknowledge. Kael forced himself to stand. His legs shook, his chest heaved. Every dominant instinct he'd honed over 28 years screamed that this was wrong, that he was the alpha, that nothing should be able to make him kneel. But she had. Easily. From 300 miles away. The door opened again. Not Darius this time. His father stood there, and the look on Marcus's face said he'd felt that pulse of power too. Every dominant wolf in the pack house probably had. "What," Marcus said very quietly, "was that?" "Her." "The girl? She's not a girl anymore." Kael straightened his shirt, trying to look composed even though he could still feel the echo of that command in his bones. "I don't know what she is, but she's not what we thought." Marcus's expression didn't change, but Kael saw the calculation in his eyes. The way his father's mind worked through scenarios and strategies faster than most wolves could blink. "Then we have a problem," Marcus said. "We? If she's powerful enough to affect you from that distance, she's a threat to the pack." Marcus stepped into the room. "Which means we handle her the way we handle all threats." "You want to send the hunters?" "I want to send the army." Kael's head snapped up. "What?" "You felt that power. Everyone in this pack house felt it." Marcus's voice was calm, clinical. "If she comes back here, if she tries to claim territory or challenge authority, she could fracture everything we've built. The pack would be split between loyalty to their alpha and submission to whatever she's become." "So you want to kill her?" "I want to eliminate a threat before it eliminates us." Marcus met his eyes. "And so should you, unless—" He let the word hang. "Unless what?" "Unless you still feel something for her." Marcus's smile was thin. "Unless that bond is affecting your judgment." "It's not." "Then prove it." Marcus pulled a phone from his pocket, tapped something, and handed it over. The screen showed a map. Shadow Peak territory in the center, and 300 miles north, marked with a red pin, a location labeled Unknown Power Source. "Our scouts felt her too," Marcus said. "Tracked the direction. If you want to prove you're not compromised, you'll lead the team that goes after her." Kael stared at the screen, at the red pin marking where Ilara had somehow become powerful enough to make him kneel from across 3 territories. Every logical part of his brain said his father was right. She was a threat. She needed to be handled. But his wolf snarled in absolute fury at the idea. And underneath that, underneath the fear and confusion and wounded pride, was something Kael didn't want to acknowledge. Curiosity. He wanted to see her. Wanted to know what she'd become. Wanted to understand how the wolfless orphan he'd rejected had transformed into something that could dominate him through a bond he'd tried to sever. "I'll lead the team," he heard himself say. Marcus's eyes gleamed with approval. "Good. Take Darius. Take the Blade unit. 20 of our best warriors. Find her. And end this. And if she's stronger than we think? Then you overwhelm her with numbers." Marcus headed for the door. "She may have power, Kael, but she's alone. No pack, no training, no experience. Power without control is just noise." He left. Kael looked down at the phone, at the red pin. 20 warriors. The best the Shadow Peak pack had to offer. Against one girl who'd only had her power for 3 days. It should be easy. It should be over quick. So why did every instinct he had scream that he was about to make the second worst mistake of his life? His wolf didn't answer, just pressed against his consciousness like it was trying to tell him something he was too stubborn to hear. Kale pocketed the phone and went to gather his team. Alara felt it the moment he made the decision. Through the bond, that chain connecting them, she sensed his resolve, his determination, his plan. He was coming for her. With an army. She should have been terrified, should have run, should have taken Lyra's advice and disappeared into some remote corner of the world where wolves would never find her. Instead, she smiled. "He's coming," she said to Lyra's ghost. "Good." The former sovereign looked pleased. Let him bring his warriors. Let him think numbers will make a difference." "Will they?" "That depends." Lyra studied her. "How much control do you have over the power? Can you use it deliberately, or does it just flare when you're emotional?" Alara thought about the rogues, about the way she'd made Kael kneel without really meaning to. "I don't know," she admitted. "Then we have 3 days to find out." Lyra's form solidified slightly, becoming almost real. Because if you're going to face an alpha and his pack, you need to be able to wield that power like a weapon, consciously, precisely, without hesitation. 3 days isn't enough time to... It'll have to be. Lyra moved to the center of the courtyard. "The crown gave you raw power. Now I'll give you the skill to use it. But I'm warning you now, this won't be gentle. The training our kind went through was brutal. It had to be. We were preparing to rule wolves, and wolves don't respect weakness." "I'm not weak." "No." Lyra's smile was sharp. "But you're untrained, unfocused. Right now, your power is like a wildfire. Impressive, but uncontrolled. We're going to turn it into a scalpel. And if I can't, then when Kael Dracor arrives with 20 warriors, they'll kill you." Lyra's voice was matter-of-fact. "Your power will scare them, but fear makes wolves dangerous. If you can't control them, truly control them, they'll rip you apart before their instincts can stop them." Alara's hands curled into fists. "Then teach me." "Strip off the crown." "What?" "You heard me. Take it off." Lyra waited. "The crown amplifies your power, makes it easier to access, but you need to learn how to tap into it without the crutch. Otherwise, the first thing an enemy will do is rip that off your head." Alara hesitated. The crown had become comfortable, safe. The idea of removing it felt like voluntarily cutting off her own arm. But Lyra was right. She reached up and pulled the crown free. The power didn't disappear, but it muted, became quieter, harder to reach. "Now," Lyra said, "let's see if you're actually strong enough to survive what's coming." And the training began. Kael stood in the armory, watching his warriors prepare. Darius was there, strapping on reinforced leather armor. The Blade unit, 20 elite fighters handpicked from the strongest wolves in the territory, geared up around them. Weapons, supplies, everything they'd need for a 3-day march north. "You sure about this?" Darius asked quietly. "No." His beta blinked. "That's honest. Lying to you won't help." Kael checked his own gear. Twin blades at his hips, a hunting knife strapped to his calf. No armor. He fought better without it. "Something's wrong about this whole thing. The part where your rejected mate became powerful enough to make you kneel from 300 miles away? That would be it. Yeah." Darius was quiet for a moment. "My wolf's uneasy. Keeps telling me we shouldn't go." "Mine too." "And we're going anyway?" "We don't have a choice." Kael met his friend's eyes. "If we don't handle this, my father will. And his version of handling it will be a lot bloodier than mine." "So what's your version?" That was the question Kael had been avoiding all day. What was he planning to do when he found Alara? Kill her, like his father wanted? Capture her, and drag her back to face the council? Or... He cut that thought off before it could finish forming. "We'll figure it out when we get there," he said. Darius didn't look convinced, but he nodded. The Blade unit finished their preparations. 20 wolves, 10 men, 10 women, all of them lethal, all of them loyal, all of them willing to die for their alpha. They shouldn't need that many to handle one girl, but Kael had felt her power, and he wasn't taking chances. "Move out," he ordered. They left Shadow Peak territory at dusk, moving fast through the forest. Wolves could cover 100 miles a day when they pushed. 3 days to reach the red pin on the map. 3 days to end this. Kyle ran at the front, his wolf form powerful and black, his mind churning through strategies and scenarios. Through the bond, he felt Ilara. Still north, still alive, still waiting. And under everything else, under the fear and the determination and the confusion, he felt her. Ilara's lungs burned. 3 days of Lyra's training had stripped her down to nothing and rebuilt her into something sharp, focused, lethal. Her body ached in places she didn't know could ache. Her mind felt raw from the constant assault of lessons, commands, techniques that the lunar sovereigns had perfected over millennia. But she was ready, or as ready as she'd ever be for what was coming. "They're close," Lyra said, her spectral form flickering in the pre-dawn darkness. 2 miles out, maybe less. Ilara stood in the center of the ruins, the crown back on her head where it belonged. She could feel them now. 21 wolves moving through the forest like a military unit. Disciplined, fast, dangerous. And at the front, leading them, Kyle. The bond between them hummed with tension. She could taste his determination through it, his focus. The cold resolve that said he'd made his decision and wouldn't be swayed. He was coming to kill her. Good. Let him try. "Remember what I taught you," Lyra said. "Power projection isn't about force. It's about presence. You don't fight wolves. You dominate them. You make their instincts override their loyalty." "I remember. And if it doesn't work, if they're too well trained or too loyal to their alpha, then I run," Ilara finished. "You've said it 100 times. "I'm saying it 101. Lyra's expression was serious. "Pride will get you killed. Cale Draker brought the Blade unit. Those aren't ordinary warriors. They're conditioned to resist dominance, trained to fight through instinct. If you can't control them immediately, you retreat and regroup." Ilara nodded, but her jaw was set. Retreat wasn't in her vocabulary anymore, not after what Kyle had done to her. Not after the humiliation, the rejection, the casual cruelty of watching him walk away like she was garbage. Through the bond, she pushed a single thought at him. "I'm waiting." 2 miles away, Kale stumbled. His wolf form shifted mid-stride, bones cracking and reforming until he stood on 2 legs again, naked and breathing hard. Behind him, the Blade unit stopped, their eyes glowing in the darkness. Darius shifted beside him. "What happened?" "She knows we're here." "How?" Kale pressed a hand to his chest where the bond pulsed like a second heartbeat. "She told me." "Told you?" Darius's voice sharpened. "Through the bond?" "Yeah." The warriors exchanged glances. Uneasy. Uncertain. Using a bond as communication was normal between mates. But a rejected bond? That should have been silent, dead, useless. "She's playing with you," Darius said. "No." Kale's voice was tight. "She's warning me." "Of what?" "That you're making a mistake," came Ilara's voice through the bond, clear as if she was standing next to him. "Turn around, Kyle. Go home. Forget you ever found me." His jaw clenched. "Not a chance." The response came back immediately. "Then come die." The bond cut off, leaving him in silence. "Shift," Kyle ordered. "We go inhuman. I want hands free for weapons." The Blade unit obeyed, 20 wolves becoming 20 warriors in a fluid wave of transformation. They dressed quickly from packs they'd carried. Tactical gear, weapons, everything needed for a coordinated strike. "Formation apex," Kyle said. "I take point. Darius on my 6. Flankers wide. If she runs, we cage her. If she fights, we end it," Darius finished. The words tasted wrong in Kyle's mouth, but he nodded. They moved. Silent. Professional. Every warrior scanning for threats. The ruins appeared through the trees like broken teeth, and Kyle felt his wolf press against his consciousness, whining. "Don't," it seemed to say. "Don't do this." He ignored it. The gate stood open, waiting. Kale raised a fist, and the unit stopped. He studied the entrance, the ancient stone, the symbols he didn't recognize, the darkness beyond. It felt like a trap. It probably was a trap. He stepped through anyway. The courtyard was empty. Dawn light filtered through the broken walls, painting everything gold and gray. No movement, no sound, just ruins. And in the center, standing on a raised stone platform, Elara. Kale's breath stopped. She looked nothing like the girl he'd rejected 3 days ago. That girl had been small, timid, dressed in ceremonial white and trembling with hope. This woman wore black leather that fit like armor. Her hair was longer somehow, falling in dark waves past her shoulders. Her skin seemed to glow faintly, like she'd swallowed moonlight. And her eyes, they were silver, not reflecting light, actually silver, like molten metal had replaced her irises. The crown on her head looked like it had grown there. Natural. Right. A circlet of silver so delicate it seemed impossible. Yet Kyle felt the power radiating from it like heat from a forge. "Hello, Kyle," she said. Her voice was different too, stronger, layered with harmonics that made his wolf whimper. "Elara." He kept his voice level, controlled. "Nice trick with the eyes." "This isn't a trick." She descended from the platform with fluid grace, each step deliberate. "This is what I am, what I've always been. You just never bothered to look." The blade unit spread out behind him, forming a loose semicircle. Weapons ready, eyes sharp. But Kyle noticed something. They weren't attacking. Every warrior in his unit was trained to strike first against threats, trained to move on his signal without hesitation. But they stood frozen, their bodies locked in place, their eyes wide, because their wolves were screaming at them to bow. "Stand down," Kale ordered. Elara smiled. "They can't. Their instincts won't let them." "Bullshit." He looked at Darius. "Beta, move." Darius's face was pale. Sweat beaded on his forehead. His hands shook. "I'm trying. I can't. My wolf won't." "Try harder." "Kyle, Darius's voice cracked. "What is she?" That was the question, wasn't it? Elara stopped 10 feet away. Close enough that Kyle could see the silver light swirling in her eyes. Close enough that the bond between them pulled tight, aching. "I'm a lunar sovereign," she said simply. "The true apex of our world. The bloodline your precious wolves tried to erase 200 years ago because they were scared of what we represented." "We don't have sovereigns," Kyle said. "That's a myth." "Is it?" Elara gestured to the ruins. "Then explain this place. Explain the power you feel radiating off me. Explain why 20 of your best warriors can't move because their wolves recognize me as something above them in the natural order." Kyle's jaw clenched. "Whatever you are, you're still alone. Still outnumbered. Still the girl you rejected?" Her voice turned cold. "Still nothing?" The words hit harder than they should have. "I rejected you because you were wolfless," he said. "Because bonding with you would have destroyed my pack's credibility." "No." Elara's eyes flashed brighter. "You rejected me because you're a coward, because the bond scared you, because for 1 second you felt something real and it terrified you so much you had to destroy it." "That's not, isn't it?" She moved closer and Kyle felt his own body lock up. Not paralysis. Worse, his wolf pushing against his control, trying to force him to his knees. "You felt it, that night. The bond wasn't just connection, it was recognition. Your wolf knew what I was, knew I was stronger, and you couldn't handle that." "You're delusional." "Am I?" Elara stopped directly in front of him. So close he could smell her, pine and ozone and something wild that made his head spin. "Then look me in the eye and tell me you don't feel it right now. Tell me your wolf isn't begging you to submit." Kyle met her gaze. Mistake. Her eyes were silver mirrors that reflected something ancient and absolute. Power that made his wolf whine and press down, trying to force his knees to bend. He fought it. Every dominant instinct he'd honed over 28 years pushed back against that pressure, but it was like fighting gravity. "Kneel," Elara said softly. "Fuck you." "Kneel," she repeated, and this time there was weight behind the word. Command. Authority that bypassed his conscious mind and spoke directly to the wolf inside him. His knees buckled. Kale hit the ground hard, his hand slamming into the stone to catch himself. Rage and humiliation flooded through him in equal measure. Behind him, the blade unit collapsed like puppets with cut strings. 20 warriors, the best the Shadow Peak Pack had to offer, on their knees, their heads bowed, their wolves completely overwhelmed. Only Darius managed to stay partially upright, shaking with the effort, his eyes blazing with defiant fury. Elara looked at them all, and her expression was carved from ice. "This is what you came to kill," she said. "This is what you thought was weak, defenseless, easy prey." Kale forced his head up, his teeth bared. "We didn't. Don't lie." Her voice cracked like a whip. "I felt you make the decision, felt you gather your warriors, felt you plan my execution like I was nothing more than a rabid dog that needed to be put down. You're a threat to my pack. I'm a threat to your ego." Elara crouched in front of him, and this close, Kyle could see the pain beneath her anger, the hurt she was trying so hard to hide. "I could have been your mate, your partner, your equal, but you threw me away because I didn't fit your idea of what strength looked like. You were wolfless," he growled. "I was a sovereign." Her hand shot out, grabbing his jaw, forcing him to look at her. "And now you're going to live with that. You're going to go back to your pack and tell them what you found. Tell them the girl you rejected became the most dangerous thing in this territory. Tell them." A scream cut her off. Not from the warriors, from the forest. Alara's head snapped up, her eyes widening. Kale felt it too, a surge of power, different from hers, older, darker. Something was coming. The pressure holding them down vanished as Alara's concentration broke. Kale surged to his feet, his hand going to the blade at his hip. "What is that?" Darius gasped, climbing to his feet beside him. "I don't," Elara started. The forest exploded, not with wolves, with something else. They poured through the trees like a black tide. Creatures that looked almost like wolves, but wrong. Twisted. Their fur was patchy and diseased. Their eyes glowed red instead of gold. Their mouths were too wide, filled with too many teeth. Corrupted. Kale had heard stories about corrupted wolves, creatures that had been exposed to dark magic or forbidden rituals, monsters that had lost everything that made them pack, leaving only hunger and rage. There were dozens of them, and they were all focused on Elara. "Shit," she breathed. The corrupted hit the ruins like a wave. The blade unit reacted instantly, their training overriding their shock. Blades flashed, warriors moved. Kale's unit formed a defensive line between the creatures and Elara, protecting her, even after she'd forced them to their knees, even after she'd humiliated them. Because that's what wolves did. They protected, even when it made no sense. Kyle shifted mid-stride, his wolf form massive and black, his teeth closing around the throat of the first corrupted that got close. Blood flooded his mouth, wrong-tasting, chemical, toxic. He spit it out and grabbed another. Beside him, Darius fought with brutal efficiency. The blade unit worked in pairs, coordinated, lethal, but there were too many. For every corrupted they killed, 2 more appeared. And in the center of the courtyard, Elara stood frozen, her eyes wide, her power flickering like a candle in a storm. "Lyra!" she screamed at the empty air. "What is this?" No ghost appeared. The corrupted kept coming. One broke through the defensive line, lunging for Elara with jaws wide. Kyle moved without thinking. His wolf form crashed into the creature, bearing it to the ground, his teeth ripping into its spine. It thrashed once and went still. He shifted back, breathing hard, covered in blood that wasn't his. Elara stared at him. "Why?" "Shut up and fight," he snarled. Her eyes flashed. For a second he thought she'd argue. Then she raised her hand and silver light exploded from her palm. The wave of power crashed into the corrupted like a tsunami. They screamed horrible, inhuman sounds as the light burned through them. Wherever it touched, they disintegrated, turned to ash, ceased to exist. In 3 seconds, she'd killed more than the blade unit had managed in 3 minutes. The courtyard went silent. The surviving corrupted, maybe a dozen, retreated into the forest, their red eyes glowing in the darkness, watching, waiting. Kael's unit reformed around him, breathing hard, bleeding from a dozen wounds, but alive. He turned to Elara. "What the fuck were those?" "I don't know." Her voice shook. Those weren't wolves. Not anymore." "No shit." Darius limped over, his arm bleeding. "We need to leave." Now, if there are more, there are always more, Alara said quietly. She was staring at the forest where the corrupted had vanished. They were sent, controlled. By who? Kael demanded. I don't... She stopped. Her eyes went wide. No. What? The bond. She pressed a hand to her chest. Kael, the bond between us, it's not just connection. It's a beacon. They can track it, use it to find... An arrow punched through her shoulder. Alara gasped, stumbling back, silver blood streaming down her arm. Kael spun. More figures emerged from the forest. Not corrupted this time. Wolves. Real ones. But wearing symbols he didn't recognize. Carrying weapons designed to kill from a distance. And at their front, walking with casual confidence. Elder Thorn. Kael's blood ran cold. What are you doing here? Finishing what you were too weak to start, Thorn said calmly. He was flanked by a dozen wolves, all of them wearing the same symbols, all of them armed. Your father suspected you might fail, might let sentiment compromise your judgment, so he sent me. Insurance. My father... Kael's mind raced. He ordered this? He ordered her death. Thorn gestured to Alara, who was on her knees, her hand pressed to the arrow wound. And unlike you, I don't have conflicted feelings about following through. She's my mate, Kael snarled. She was your mistake. Thorn raised his hand and the wolves with him raised their bows. And we're correcting it. No, Kael started. But Thorn wasn't looking at him anymore. He was looking at Alara, and he was smiling. Did you really think we didn't know what you were, girl? His voice was almost gentle. Did you think the crown was hidden by accident? That your bloodline died out naturally? Alara's face went white. What? We hunted you. Thorn's smile widened. For 200 years we hunted every last sovereign, killed them, burned their strongholds, buried their artifacts. And when we found the last few survivors hiding in remote territories, we did something worse than kill them. No, Alara whispered. We let them breed. Thorn moved closer, circling like a predator. Let them have children, grandchildren. Let the bloodline continue just enough to stay alive. Weak, powerless, wolfless. Kael's stomach dropped. And then we planted those descendants in packs. Made sure they suffered. Made sure they were rejected, humiliated, broken. Thorn stopped in front of Alara. Because we needed to make sure that if one of you ever found the crown, if the power ever woke again, you'd be so damaged, so desperate for revenge, that you'd be easy to control. That's insane, Darius breathed. That's strategy. Thorn looked at Kael. Your rejection was planned, boy. Your father arranged the entire bonding rite to make sure you'd be matched with her, made sure you'd feel the bond and reject it, because we needed her angry, needed her reckless. Why? Alara's voice was barely audible. Because sovereigns are strongest when they're bonded. Thorn crouched in front of her. The crown amplifies your power, yes. But a completed mate bond? That makes you unstoppable, which is why we had to make sure yours was rejected, corrupted, twisted into something toxic. He reached out and grabbed the crown from her head. Alara screamed. The power that had been burning inside her flickered, dimmed. Without the crown, she was still stronger than a normal human, but not strong enough, not against this. Thorn examined the crown, turning it over in his hands. 200 years we've been waiting for someone to find this, waiting for the bloodline to produce an heir strong enough to activate it. And now that you have... He crushed it. The crown shattered in his hands, silver shards falling to the ground. Alara made a sound like she'd been stabbed. The light in her eyes flickered and died, leaving them brown, human, powerless. No! She lunged for the shards, but Thorn kicked her back. Now you're nothing again, he said pleasantly. Just a wolfless orphan. Just... Kael's fist caught him in the jaw. Thorn staggered, blood spraying from his mouth. The wolves with him raised their weapons, but Kael's blade unit moved faster, blades drawn, forming a protective circle around Alara. Stand down! Kael's voice was lethal. All of you! Right fucking now! Thorn spit blood and laughed. You're choosing her? After everything? After what she is? She's my mate. Kael's eyes blazed gold. And you just admitted to manipulating me, to using me as a pawn in whatever sick game you and my father have been playing. Your father is Alpha, Thorn said. His word is law. Not anymore. Kale's wolf pressed forward, and his voice dropped to a growl. Darius, take Alara. Get her out of here. Kyle, that's an order, Beta. Darius hesitated, then moved. He scooped Alara off the ground. She was barely conscious, her eyes glazed with shock, and started toward the forest. Thorn's wolves moved to block them. Let them pass, Kale said. Or what? Thorn smiled. You'll kill us? You'll betray your own pack for a broken sovereign? If I have to. The words hung in the air. Kale felt the blade unit shift behind him, felt their uncertainty, their confusion. They'd been sent here to kill Alara. Now they were protecting her. Now they were choosing between their Alpha's orders and their future Alpha's commands. Last chance, Kale said quietly. Let them go, or I'll show you why I'm the next Alpha King. Thorn studied him. Then he raised his hand. The wolves with him lowered their weapons. Darius ran, Alara in his arms, disappearing into the forest, and Kyle stood alone in the ruins, facing an elder who'd just admitted to orchestrating his entire life, surrounded by warriors who might decide to kill him at any second. Through the bond, damaged, toxic, but still there, he felt Alara's consciousness fading, felt her pain, felt her absolute devastation at having the crown destroyed, and underneath everything else, he felt her heartbeat. Weak. Getting weaker. She was dying. The corrupted had poisoned her with that arrow. The loss of the crown had stripped away her defenses, and now her body was shutting down. He had minutes, maybe less. You've made your choice, Thorn said. I hope it was worth it. Kyle didn't answer, just shifted and ran. He caught up to Darius a mile into the forest. His beta had stopped, laying Alara down on a bed of moss. His hands pressed to her wound, trying to stop the bleeding. But it wasn't working. Silver blood pooled beneath her. Too much. Way too much. She's not healing, Darius said urgently. I don't know what that arrow was tipped with, but move. Kale shifted back to human, dropping to his knees beside her. Alara's eyes were half closed, her breathing shallow, her skin pale as death. The bond between them pulsed weakly. And Kale made a decision. Not the smart one, not the strategic one, the right one. Forgive me, he whispered. Then he bit into his own wrist, tearing the flesh open, and pressed the wound to her mouth. Drink, he ordered. Alpha blood, the most potent healing agent a wolf could offer, but giving it to someone who wasn't pack, wasn't even a wolf, could kill them as easily as save them. Alara's eyes flickered open. She tried to push him away, but she was too weak. Drink, Kale repeated, his voice rough. Please. Their eyes met. And in that moment, everything else fell away. The manipulation, the rejection, the lies and schemes and pain. Just two people connected by a bond neither of them wanted but couldn't escape. Alara's lips parted. She drank. And the world exploded into silver fire. Somewhere deep in Shadow Peak territory, Alpha Marcus Dracor stood in his office and smiled. It's done? He asked. The crown is destroyed, came the voice on the phone. Thorn. The girl is dying, and your son just gave her his blood. Marcus's smile widened. Perfect. Perfect. The plan was to kill her. No. Marcus moved to the window, looking out at his kingdom. The plan was to bind her, and he just did it. Alpha blood creates a debt, a tie even stronger than a mate bond when given to save a life. She'll belong to him now, to us, a sovereign under our control. What if she doesn't survive? She will. Marcus's voice was certain. Sovereign bloodlines don't die easily, and once she's bonded to Kyle through blood and mate connection, once she's tied to our pack completely, we'll have what the wolves have wanted for 200 years. Which is? A weapon. Marcus's reflection in the window showed cold satisfaction. The kind that can destroy every other pack in this territory. The kind that makes us unbeatable. He hung up. Outside, the moon was rising. And in the forest 300 miles north, Alara Voss stopped breathing. Kale felt it through the bond. Felt her heartbeat stutter. Felt it stop. No, he breathed. No, Don't you fucking dare. He pressed his torn wrist harder against her mouth, his other hand on her chest, pushing power through the bond, everything he had, everything he was, trying to force life back into her body. Come on, he growled. Come on, you stubborn... Her back arched. Her eyes snapped open, silver again, blazing with light that had nothing to do with the crown. And her hand shot up, grabbing his wrist, her grip like iron. She drank. Not gently, not carefully, like she was drowning, and his blood was air. The bond between them ignited, not toxic anymore, not corrupted, raw, primal, absolute. Cale gasped as power flooded back through the connection. Not his power returning, but hers. Different now. Changed. The sovereign magic mixing with alpha blood, creating something that had never existed before. A hybrid bond. Alara's wound closed. Her skin regained color, her breathing steadied. And when she finally released his wrist, her eyes were still silver, but they held something new. Understanding, fury, purpose. She sat up slowly, and Kyle felt the shift in her power, felt it settle into something more focused, more dangerous. The crown was gone, but she wasn't powerless, not anymore. You saved me, she said quietly. Yeah. Why? Kyle met her gaze. Because you're my mate, and I'm done pretending that doesn't matter. Alara stared at him. Then she started laughing. Not with joy, with something darker, sharper. Your mate, she repeated. Right, the mate you rejected, the mate your father used as bait, the mate you were sent here to kill. Alara, no. She stood, and power radiated off her in waves. You don't get to save me now and think that makes us even. You don't get to... She stopped. Her eyes went wide. What? Darius asked. Alara pressed a hand to her chest, to the bond. Oh no, she whispered. What's wrong? Kyle demanded. She looked at him, and for the first time since he'd found her in the ruins, she looked genuinely terrified. The blood bond, she said. Alpha blood given to save a life. It doesn't just heal, it binds, creates a debt, a tie that... She swayed. Kale caught her. Easy. You don't understand. Her voice was ragged. Sovereign magic and alpha blood. They're not supposed to mix. They're opposing forces. And now they're both inside me, fighting for dominance, and if I can't balance them... Her body convulsed. Kale held her as power exploded outward, silver and gold, light and shadow, two types of magic trying to occupy the same space, trying to destroy each other, and Alara trapped in the middle, being torn apart from the inside. Make it stop, she gasped. Kale, please! But he didn't know how, didn't know if it was even possible. All he could do was hold her as she screamed, her power spiraling out of control, the forest around them beginning to... The forest was burning, not with fire, with power. Silver and gold light spiraled outward from Alara's body in waves that shattered trees and scorched the earth black. Her screams tore through the night, raw and agonized, as two types of magic warred inside her for dominance. Kale held her through it, his arms locked around her convulsing body, his own power flaring in response to hers. The blood bond pulsed between them like a live wire, feeding the chaos, making everything worse. Do something, Darius shouted over the roar of unleashed magic. I'm trying! Kale's hands were burning where they touched her skin. The sovereign magic rejected him, fought him, tried to rip him away from her. But he didn't let go. Alara's eyes rolled back, silver light pouring from them like tears. Can't control... Yes, you can. Kale grabbed her face, forcing her to look at him. Listen to me. You're stronger than this. You survived rejection, survived exile, survived having your crown destroyed. This doesn't get to kill you. The magic, it's tearing me apart. Then stop fighting it. His voice cut through her panic. The alpha blood and sovereign power, they're not enemies. They're both part of you now, so stop trying to choose between them and make them work together. I don't know how. Figure it out. He pulled her closer, his forehead pressed against hers. Because if you die, that bond between us dies with you, and I'm not ready for that. Her breath hitched. You rejected me. I was wrong. The words hung between them for half a heartbeat. Then Alara closed her eyes and stopped screaming. The power spiraling around them didn't disappear. But it changed. The silver and gold stopped fighting each other and started weaving together, braiding into something new, something that pulsed in rhythm with both their heartbeats. The light faded slowly, revealing devastation. The clearing around them looked like a bomb had gone off. Trees reduced to splinters, earth torn up in massive furrows. The blade units scattered around the perimeter, their faces pale with shock. Alara sagged in Kael's arms, breathing hard. "Is she—" Darius started. "I'm alive," Alara rasped. She pushed herself upright, swaying slightly. "Barely." Kael kept one hand on her arm, steadying her. Through the bond, he could feel the new balance inside her. Precarious, unstable, but holding. For now. "We need to move," Darius said. "Thorn's wolves will have felt that. They'll be coming. Let them come." Alara's voice was cold. She looked at Kael, and her eyes were still silver, but the light in them was controlled now, deliberate. "Your father planned this, all of it." "I know." "Did you?" Her gaze sharpened. "Did you know before tonight that he'd been manipulating us, using us as pieces in whatever game he's playing?" Kael's jaw clenched. "No. I swear I didn't know. But you suspected." It wasn't a question. "The rejection, it happened too easily, too perfectly, like you'd been waiting for an excuse." He had no defense against that, because she was right. Some part of him had been looking for a reason to reject the bond. The wolfless orphan was just convenient. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "Sorry doesn't fix this." Alara pulled away from him, standing on her own even though her legs shook. "Your blood is inside me now, your pack bond. I can feel it mixing with what's left of my sovereign magic. Do you understand what that means? It saved your life. It tied me to you," her voice cracked, "to your pack, to the same wolves who've been hunting my bloodline for 2 centuries. You didn't save me, Kael. You claimed me." The truth of it hit like a physical blow. She was right. Alpha blood given to save a life created a bond deeper than marriage, deeper than mating. It was ownership, and whether he'd meant it that way or not, he'd just bound a sovereign to his bloodline, exactly what his father had wanted. "Fuck," Kael breathed. "Yeah." Alara's laugh was bitter. "So congratulations. You rejected me, tried to kill me, and ended up binding me anyway. Your father must be so proud." "Alara." "Don't." She held up a hand. "Just don't. I need to think. I need to—" A howl cut through the night. Close. Too close. The blade unit reacted instantly, forming a defensive perimeter. Weapons out, eyes scanning the darkness. "They're here," Darius said. "How many?" Kael's senses stretched outward, searching. His wolf counted signatures. 10, 15, 20, too many. "It's not just Thorn's wolves," one of the blade warriors said. "I'm picking up Shadow Peak Pack signatures, a lot of them." Kael's blood ran cold. "My father sent the main force." "To do what?" Alara asked. "Kill me? Capture me?" "Neither." The voice came from the forest, familiar, cold. "To retrieve what belongs to our pack." Alpha Marcus Dracor stepped into the clearing. He looked exactly like Kael remembered from this morning, broad-shouldered, controlled, radiating the kind of power that made weaker wolves drop their eyes. But now Kael saw it differently, saw the calculation, the manipulation, the complete lack of remorse. Behind Marcus, 50 wolves emerged from the trees, not warriors, the full war party, elite fighters who'd crushed 3 rival packs in the last decade. Kael's blade unit, 21 strong, looked like children in comparison. "Father," Kael's voice was flat, "wasn't expecting you personally." Clearly. Marcus's eyes swept the clearing, taking in the destruction, the scattered warriors, and Alara standing at the center of it all. "Thorn informed me you'd gone rogue, chose the sovereign over your pack. I didn't want to believe it. And now? Now I'm disappointed." Marcus moved closer, and his wolves moved with him, a coordinated unit that knew exactly how to kill. "You gave her your blood, created a bond I specifically ordered you to avoid." "You ordered?" Kael's hands curled into fists. "You orchestrated my entire life. The bonding rite, the rejection, sending me here with orders to kill her, all of it was manipulation. All of it was necessary." Marcus stopped 20 feet away. The sovereigns nearly destroyed our kind 200 years ago. They ruled through dominance we couldn't fight, couldn't challenge. The only way to survive was to erase them. So you hunted children, Alara said. Her voice was quiet, deadly. You slaughtered entire bloodlines. We survived, Marcus cut her off. That's what alphas do. We protect our packs, even when it requires difficult choices. Genocide isn't a difficult choice, Alara spat. It's evil, Marcus smiled. Spoken like someone who's never had to lead, never had to make decisions that save hundreds at the cost of dozens. You're young, naive. You think power means you're owed something. I think power means responsibility. Good. Marcus's eyes gleamed. Then you'll understand why you're coming back with us, why you'll submit to pack authority, why you'll use that sovereign magic to serve Shadowpeak instead of threatening it. Alara laughed. Actually laughed. You're insane if you think I'm going anywhere with you. You don't have a choice. Marcus gestured to the wolves surrounding them. My son bound you with his blood. That makes you pack. And pack follows alpha commands. I'm not pack. You are now. Marcus's voice dropped to something commanding, alpha voice, the kind that forced submission from every wolf in hearing range. Kneel! The blade unit dropped instantly. Even Darius hit his knees, his body obeying before his mind could catch up. But Alara stayed standing. Marcus's eyes narrowed. I said kneel. I heard you. Alara's voice was calm, too calm. And I'm telling you no. The blood bond doesn't work the way you think it does. Silver light began to swirl around her hands. You assumed giving me Kael's blood would make me controllable, would tie me to your pack hierarchy, but you forgot something. What? I'm not a wolf. The light intensified. I'm a sovereign, and sovereign magic doesn't bow to alpha commands. It rewrites them. She raised her hand. The blood bond flared, not from Marcus's perspective, but from hers. She grabbed the connection Kael had created when he saved her life, and pulled. Hard. Kael gasped as power flooded through him. Not his power, hers. Using the bond like a conduit, pouring sovereign magic directly into his bloodstream. His wolf howled in his mind, not in pain, but in recognition, in acceptance, because the bond wasn't one way. If Kael's blood had tied Alara to his pack, then her magic had tied him to her power, and she'd just activated that connection. What? Marcus started. Kael's eyes flashed silver, not gold, not the amber of a normal alpha. Silver, like hers. You wanted to bind her, Kael said, and his voice carried harmonics that shouldn't exist in a wolf. You wanted to control her, but the bond works both ways, Father, and she just showed me exactly what that means. He stood, and the blade unit stood with him, freed from Marcus's command by the sovereign power now flowing through their future alpha. Marcus's expression darkened. You're choosing her over your pack. I'm choosing what's right over what's convenient. Kael moved to stand beside Alara, his shoulder brushing hers. You've been lying to me my entire life, using me, using her, using everyone as pieces in a game only you understood. That game kept us alive. That game made us monsters. Kael's voice cracked like thunder. You killed children. You erased an entire bloodline because you were scared of losing power. That's not protection. That's genocide. It was survival. It was cowardice. Alara stepped forward. You were scared that sovereigns would take your precious hierarchy away. So you murdered us. And when you couldn't kill us all, you broke us, made us weak, made us think we were nothing. You are nothing, Marcus said coldly. A broken sovereign with a destroyed crown and power you can barely control. You think you're strong enough to challenge an alpha king? No? Alara's smile was sharp. I think I'm strong enough to destroy one. The clearing exploded into chaos. Marcus's war party attacked as one, 50 wolves against 21. The numbers should have been overwhelming, but the blade unit had something the war party didn't. Sovereign magic flowing through their bond to Kael. The first wave of attackers hit the defensive line and recoiled like they'd struck a wall. Silver light flared around each warrior, protecting them, enhancing their speed and strength. Kael shifted mid-stride, his wolf form massive and black, but his eyes still silver. He crashed into the war party like a battering ram, his teeth and claws enhanced by power that shouldn't exist in a wolf. Beside him, Alara fought without shifting at all, because she couldn't shift. But she didn't need to. Her hands blazed with silver light. Every gesture sent waves of force that scattered wolves like leaves. Every command, spoken in that ancient language only sovereigns knew, made enemy wolves stumble and fall. Darius fought at her other side, his green eyes bright with awe and terror. "This is insane! Keep fighting!" Kale's voice came through the pack bond, amplified by sovereign magic. "Hold the line!" They did, for 30 seconds, for a minute, for 2. But the numbers were still wrong. The war party was too big, too coordinated, too experienced. The blade unit started falling. One warrior went down with a throat torn open, another collapsed with a shattered spine. A third screamed as 3 wolves dragged her into the forest. "We're losing!" Darius shouted. Kale knew, could feel each death through the pack bond like a knife to the gut. They needed to retreat, needed to run before... Marcus shifted. His alpha form was enormous, easily twice the size of a normal wolf, with fur so dark it seemed to absorb light. His eyes burned gold, pure, ancient, absolute dominance. He moved through the battlefield like death itself, killing blade warriors with casual efficiency, heading straight for Alara. "No!" Kale intercepted him, his wolf form crashing into his father's. They went down in a tangle of teeth and claws. Kale was strong, fast, enhanced by sovereign magic that made him faster than he'd ever been. But Marcus was the Alpha King, and Alpha Kings didn't lose. Marcus's jaws closed around Kale's shoulder, crushing bone. Kale howled, twisting, trying to break free. Through the bond, he felt Alara's panic, felt her reach for him, trying to pour more power through their connection. But she was fighting off 6 wolves at once. Couldn't spare the focus. Marcus threw Kyle across the clearing. He hit a tree hard enough to crack the trunk, his wolf form shifting involuntarily back to human as his consciousness flickered. Blood poured from his shoulder, his vision blurred. Through the haze, he saw Marcus advancing on Alara, saw the other wolves surrounding her, cutting off her escape, saw her eyes widen as she realized she was trapped. "No," Kale tried to say, but his voice wouldn't work. His body wouldn't move. The blood loss was too much, the damage too severe. He was dying, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. Marcus shifted back to human, standing over Alara with cold satisfaction. "You fought well, better than I expected. But you're still alone, still outnumbered, still..." Alara's hand shot out, not a tetikain, reaching, through the bond, through the blood connection, through every tie that linked her to Kyle. And she pulled everything he had left, his remaining strength, his consciousness, his very life force. Kale gasped as the power drained out of him, felt his heartbeat slow, felt darkness closing in. But he didn't fight it, because through the bond he felt what she was doing with that power, felt her weaving it together with her sovereign magic, felt her creating something that had never existed before, a hybrid, not wolf, not sovereign, both. The power erupted from Alara in a shockwave that flattened every wolf within 50 feet. When the light faded, she stood transformed. Her body had changed, still human-shaped, but wrapped in silver armor that looked like it was made from moonlight itself. Her eyes blazed with combined power, and behind her, visible only as a shimmering outline, was the ghost of a wolf. Not her wolf, Kyle's. She'd pulled his wolf spirit through the bond and merged it with her sovereign magic. Marcus stared, his expression caught between shock and fury. "That's impossible. Everything about me is impossible." Alara's voice carried dual tones, hers and something deeper. "You made sure of that when you spent 200 years trying to destroy my bloodline. You made us adapt, evolve, become something stronger than pure sovereigns ever were. You're an abomination. I'm the future." She raised both hands, and power gathered around them. Silver and gold, light and shadow, wolf and sovereign fused into something new. "And you're the past that needs to die." The blast should have killed Marcus, should have obliterated him and every wolf standing with him. But at the last second, something deflected it. A barrier of pure golden light that appeared between Alara and her target. She stumbled back, confused. "Enough!" The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. The forest went silent. Every wolf, Marcus's war party, the Blade unit, even the wounded, froze. Because they felt it. The presence descending on the clearing like a physical weight. Power that made Marcus's alpha dominance look like a candle next to the sun. Power that made Alara's sovereign magic feel young and untested. A figure materialized at the edge of the clearing. Female. Ancient. Wearing robes that seemed to be made from starlight and shadow. Her hair was white, but her face was ageless. And her eyes were silver like Alara's, but older, deeper. Like looking into wells that had no bottom. "Who?" Alara started. "Selenar Vex." The woman's voice was quiet, absolute. "First sovereign, original bloodline, and very disappointed in all of you." Marcus recovered first. "The first sovereign died 200 years ago." "I did." Selenar's smile was cold. "But death is negotiable when you're old enough. And I've been watching, waiting, hoping my descendants would find the strength to reclaim what was taken." She looked at Alara. "You did well, child. Better than I expected. You survived, adapted, found a way to merge our magic with wolf blood, something I never managed." Her expression hardened. "But you're still thinking too small." "What do you mean?" Alara asked. "You're fighting over territory, over packs, over who gets to rule this tiny corner of the world." Selenar gestured and the air shimmered, while the real threat grows stronger every day. The shimmering resolved into an image, a map of the entire wolf world, dozens of territories, hundreds of packs, thousands of wolves, and spreading across them like a plague, corruption, the same twisted, wrong power that had animated the creatures who attacked the ruins. "What is that?" Kael managed. His voice was weak, but he was conscious. "Barely. The price of your war." Selenar's voice was grim. "When the wolves slaughtered my people, they didn't just commit genocide. They broke something fundamental in the balance of our world. Sovereigns existed to regulate wolf magic, to keep it from consuming itself. Without us, it goes rogue," Alara finished. "Turns into that." "Exactly." Selenar waved her hand and the image disappeared. "The corruption spreads faster every year. It takes wolves and twists them into those creatures you fought. Soon, it will take entire packs, entire territories, and unless someone stops it, everyone dies," Marcus said quietly. "Everyone dies," Selenar confirmed. "Wolf and sovereign alike." Silence. Kael forced himself to sit up, his hand pressed to his wounded shoulder. "What do you want from us?" "I want you to stop fighting each other and start fighting what actually matters." Selenar looked between him and Alara. "The bond between you, wolf and sovereign merged, it's the first step toward fixing what was broken. But it's only a step." "First step toward what?" Alara asked. "Toward restoring balance. Toward rebuilding what my people and his people destroyed when they went to war." Selenar's eyes blazed. "You two are bonded now. Blood and magic. Whether you wanted it or not. And that bond makes you the only ones who can do what needs to be done. Which is? Unite the packs." Selenar's voice was absolute. "All of them. Under a new kind of rule. Not pure wolf, not pure sovereign. A hybrid system that combines both." Marcus laughed. Actually laughed. "You want us to convince every alpha in this world to submit to a system we invented 3 minutes ago? That's insane. It's survival." Selenar turned to him. "The corruption is in your territory too, Marcus. You've felt it. Seen wolves changing, becoming twisted. You blamed it on rogue magic or bad breeding. But you knew. Deep down. You knew something was fundamentally wrong." The color drained from Marcus's face. He had known. Kael had seen it in his father's eyes over the past year. The worry. The sleepless nights. The way Marcus had become more brutal, more controlling, like he was trying to hold something together through sheer force of will. "If we do this," Kael said slowly, "if we try to unite the packs, the other alphas won't just submit. They'll fight." "Yes," Selenar agreed, "which is why you'll need an army." She looked at Marcus. "Your war party. Your territory. Your resources." Her gaze shifted to Alara. "And her power. Her magic. Her ability to make wolves submit to something higher than alpha dominance. Then to both of them. Together, you might have a chance. Separately, We're dead, Ilara finished. Worse. You're irrelevant, and the corruption wins. Kale looked at Ilara. She looked back. Through the bond, he felt her exhaustion, her pain, her absolute fury at being forced into another situation she didn't choose, but underneath all of that, determination. She'd survived too much to give up now. I'll do it, she said, on one condition. Name it, Selinar said. Marcus steps down. Now, tonight. Ilara's eyes blazed. I won't work with someone who orchestrated genocide, who manipulated and lied and treated people like chess pieces. Marcus's jaw clenched. I'm Alpha King. You're a monster. Ilara's voice was flat. And if you want any chance of stopping this corruption, you'll give your throne to someone who isn't. And who would that be? You? No. She looked at Kael. Him. Every eye in the clearing turned to Kael. He was still bleeding, still barely able to stand, still processing the fact that 20 minutes ago he'd been trying to kill this woman and now they were apparently supposed to save the world together. I'm not ready to be Alpha King, he said. You're more ready than your father, Ilara countered. You made mistakes, huge ones, but when you realized what was actually happening, you chose to do the right thing. That's leadership. That's idealism, Marcus said. He's weak, compromised by a bond he can't control. The bond is the only thing keeping both of us alive right now, Kael shot back. He met his father's eyes. You wanted to bind a sovereign to our pack. Congratulations. You succeeded, but not the way you planned. And now we're going to use that bond to fix what you broke. You can't remove me as Alpha, Marcus said. The pack follows strength. Kael stood, swaying slightly. So let's see who's stronger. Through the bond, Ilara poured power into him, not controlling him, not dominating, supporting, enhancing, making him stronger than he'd ever been. Kael's eyes flashed silver again, and every wolf in the clearing, war party and blade unit alike, felt the shift in dominance, felt the moment when the future Alpha became something more than just the heir, became the actual leader. Marcus felt it too. His expression hardened. You're challenging me. I'm replacing you. Kael's voice carried absolute certainty. Step down peacefully, and you can live out your days as an elder. Fight me, and I'll kill you in front of everyone here. Silence stretched. Marcus looked around the clearing, at his war party, at the blade unit, at the devastation, at Selinar standing like a judge waiting for verdict, at his son standing beside a sovereign, merged through a bond that shouldn't exist, representing a future Marcus had spent his entire life trying to prevent. You'll fail, Marcus said quietly. The other alphas will never submit. The corruption will spread, and everything I built will turn to ash. Maybe, Kael agreed, but at least we'll fail trying to do the right thing instead of succeeding at genocide. Marcus stared at him. Then slowly, he lowered his eyes. Submission, from an Alpha King, to his son. The war party shifted, their bond to Marcus fracturing as Kael's power, enhanced by sovereign magic, established dominance. It was done. Kael was Alpha King now, and Ilara. Ilara was his sovereign, bonded, merged, tied together in a way that terrified both of them. Selinar smiled. Good. Now the real work begins. What real work? Ilara asked. Convincing every other alpha in this world that you're not a threat. Selinar's eyes gleamed. That you're salvation, and you have exactly 7 days to do it before the corruption reaches critical mass and starts taking entire territories. 7 days? Kael's head spun. That's not enough time to... It's all you have. Selinar began to fade. I've held the corruption back as long as I could, but my power is almost gone. Soon, it'll be just you two against everything that wants you dead. Wait. Ilara reached for her. How do we stop it? The corruption. What's the source? Selinar's form flickered. Find the place where the first sovereign died, she said. Where the wolves broke the balance. The corruption started there, and it'll end there. Where's that? Kael demanded. But Selinar was already gone, leaving them standing in a destroyed clearing, surrounded by wolves who'd been trying to kill them minutes ago, bonded in a way that neither of them fully understood, and tasked with saving a world that mostly wanted them dead. Well, Darius said into the silence, this is going to be 7 days. They had 7 days to convince every alpha in the wolf world that the bond between a broken sovereign and a conflicted alpha king wasn't a threat. It was the only thing standing between them and extinction. Kale spent the first day just trying to breathe. The Shadow Peak pack house looked different now that it was his. Same stone walls, same vaulted ceilings, same ancestral portraits lining the halls. But the weight of it had changed. Every decision was his now. Every life in this territory depended on choices he made. And he'd started by exiling his own father. Marcus had left at dawn without a word, escorted to the border by warriors who'd served him for 40 years. Kale watched from the tower window, his chest tight with something that felt uncomfortably like grief. He deserved worse, Ilara said from the doorway. She looked different in daylight. The silver had faded from her eyes, leaving them brown again, but something in her gaze had changed, sharpened, like she'd seen too much to ever go back to being the girl who'd stood in that ceremonial circle hoping for acceptance. "He's still my father," Kael said. "He's still a monster." She moved into the room, her footsteps silent on the stone floor. "Don't mistake blood for loyalty. He would have killed me without hesitation." "I know." Kael turned from the window. "But he raised me, trained me. Everything I know about being alpha came from him." "Then unlearn it." Alara's voice was flat, because his version of leadership almost destroyed everything. The bond between them pulsed, not painful anymore, but present, a constant awareness of each other that felt invasive and necessary at the same time. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "The hybrid magic, is it stable?" "Define stable." She held up her hand and silver light flickered around her fingers. "I can control it better now. But it's still two opposing forces trying to coexist. Some days it feels like they're working together. Other days it feels like they're tearing me apart. If you need more of my blood, I don't want more of your blood." Her eyes flashed. "I want the crown back. I want my power to be mine, not some borrowed thing sustained by a bond I never asked for." Kael flinched. "I was trying to save your life." "I know." Her expression softened slightly. "And I'm grateful. But gratitude doesn't change the fact that every time I use this power, I'm reminded that I'm tied to you, that I can't be fully independent, that I'm still—" She cut herself off. "Still what?" Kael asked. "Still someone's possession." The words came out bitter. "Your father wanted to own me. You wanted to reject me. And now we're bonded in a way that makes both of those things true simultaneously." The accusation hung between them. Kael wanted to argue, wanted to say it wasn't like that, but the truth was more complicated than either of them wanted to acknowledge. "I don't own you," he said quietly. "Don't you?" Ilara met his gaze. "The blood bond gives you influence over me. The pack bond ties me to your territory. Even the mate bond, corrupted as it is, pulls me toward you whether I want it to or not. How is that not ownership? Because I'm not using any of it to control you. Yet," she crossed her arms. "But you could, at any moment, and I'd have to fight against my own magic to resist." Silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken truths. Finally, Kael said, "Then break the bond." Ilara blinked. "What? If it's that terrible, if being tied to me is worse than dying, then find a way to break it." He moved closer, his eyes serious. "I mean it. I don't want you here if you're only staying because magic forces you to. It's not that simple." "Why not?" "Because—" She stopped, looked away. "Because breaking a blood bond would kill us both. You know that." "Maybe." Kael's voice was steady. "Or maybe it would just hurt like hell, and then we'd both be free. Either way, I'm giving you the choice. Stay because you want to, or find a way to leave." Ilara stared at him like she was seeing him for the first time. "You're serious? Completely? Even though it might kill you? Even though—" He held her gaze. "I rejected you because I was scared. Because I couldn't handle the idea of being vulnerable to someone. But that was wrong. And I've spent the last week watching you fight and survive and adapt to things that should have destroyed you. You're the strongest person I've ever met. And you deserve better than being trapped by bonds you didn't choose." Her throat worked. "Kael—" A knock on the door interrupted whatever she'd been about to say. "Enter," Kael called. Darius stepped in, his expression grim. "The other alphas are responding. We've got 12 confirmations for the summit. 12 out of how many? Alara asked. 43. Darius's jaw clenched. The rest either didn't respond or sent explicit refusals. One even threatened war if we try to enforce what he called hybrid tyranny. Kale swore under his breath. Which one? Alpha Tauren from the Iron Peak territory. He's convinced you're trying to create a dictatorship. Says combining sovereign magic with alpha blood makes you too powerful to trust. He's not wrong, Alara said quietly. Both men looked at her. What? She shrugged. The bond does make us powerful. Probably more powerful than any single alpha or sovereign has been in centuries. If I wanted to, I could use Kael's pack connections to dominate entire territories, force submission through the hierarchy. But you won't, Kael said. How do they know that? Alara's eyes were challenging. How does anyone know we're not exactly what Tauren fears? Two traumatized people with godlike power and a lot of anger to work through. The question hit harder than it should have, because she was right. They were powerful and angry and traumatized, and if they wanted to, they could probably burn the entire wolf world to ash. They know because we're going to prove it, Kael said. At the summit, in front of every alpha who shows up, we're going to demonstrate that the hybrid bond isn't about control, it's about balance. And if they don't believe us, Darius asked, then we fight. Kael's voice was flat. Because in 6 days, the corruption is going to reach critical mass. And if we're not united by then, it won't matter what anyone believes. Mkets. The summit was held at Neutral Grounds, an ancient meeting place that predated the current pack system. A massive stone amphitheater carved into a mountainside, open to the sky, with space for thousands. Only 300 showed up. 12 alphas. Their betas. Their elite guards. All of them radiating suspicion and hostility in equal measure. Kael stood at the center of the amphitheater, Alara beside him, and looked at the faces of wolves who'd rather kill him than listen. Thank you for coming, he started. Cut the pleasantries, Alpha Tauren interrupted. He was a massive wolf, 7 feet tall, broad as a truck, with scars covering half his face. You called this summit. You claim the corruption is real and spreading, so prove it. Kael gestured to Darius, who brought forward a cage. Inside was a corrupted wolf. The amphitheater went silent. The creature in the cage barely looked like a wolf anymore. Its fur was falling out in patches. Its eyes glowed red, its mouth hung open, dripping black saliva that hissed when it hit stone. This was Thomas Vex, Kael said quietly. A warrior from my pack. 3 weeks ago, he was normal, strong, loyal. Then he disappeared for 2 days. When we found him, he'd become this. Rogue magic, one of the alphas said. It happens. No. Alara stepped forward. This isn't rogue magic, it's corruption, a disease that spreads through wolf magic itself. It started small, isolated cases in remote territories, but it's accelerating. Soon it won't be random warriors. It'll be entire packs. And you know this how? Tauren's eyes narrowed. Because you're a sovereign. Because you have access to magic we don't? Because I've seen it before. Alara's voice was steady. The corruption killed my ancestors. The original sovereigns tried to stop it, and failed. That's what actually destroyed them, not your war, the disease. And when they died, there was no one left to regulate it. So you're saying we need sovereigns, Tauren's voice dripped with disdain. That we should submit to your bloodline because you're the only ones who can save us. I'm saying we need balance. Alara met his gaze. Sovereigns and wolves working together instead of trying to destroy each other. That's the only way to stop this. Convenient, Tauren stood. The last sovereign in existence tells us we need sovereigns. Forgive me if I'm skeptical. Then be skeptical of this. Alara raised her hand. The corrupted wolf in the cage shrieked. Silver light poured from Alara's palm, wrapping around the creature like chains. It thrashed, fighting the magic, its body convulsing. And slowly, agonizingly, the corruption burned away. The red faded from its eyes. The black saliva stopped flowing. The patches of missing fur began to regrow. In 30 seconds, Thomas Vex was a wolf again. Weak, confused, but alive. The amphitheater erupted. She healed it. That's impossible. If she can cure corruption, this changes everything. Torin's voice cut through the chaos. Or it's a trick, a staged demonstration to make us dependent on her power. Alara lowered her hand, breathing hard. The healing had cost her. Kyle could feel the drain through their bond. It's not a trick, she said, but it's also not sustainable. That healing took almost everything I have. I could maybe cure 5 wolves a day. Maybe. And there are thousands already infected, tens of thousands more at risk. Then what's the point? Another alpha called out. If you can't cure them all, why are we here? Because curing individuals isn't the solution. Kyle stepped forward. The corruption spreads through wolf magic, through pack bonds, through the same connections that make us strong. To stop it permanently, we need to change how that magic works. Change it how? Torin demanded. By adding sovereign magic to the system. Alara's voice was quiet. Not to control you, not to dominate, but to regulate. To create a balance that prevents the corruption from taking hold in the first place. You want to bond every wolf to a sovereign? Torin said flatly. I want to offer every wolf the choice. Alara met his gaze. The bond Kyle and I share, it's not perfect. It's messy and complicated and sometimes painful, but it also makes us stronger than either of us could be alone. His alpha blood stabilizes my sovereign magic. My magic enhances his pack bonds. Together, we're immune to the corruption. So far, Torin shot back. So far, Alara agreed. But it's more than anyone else has. And if we can replicate this bond, if we can create similar connections between other sovereigns and other alphas, there are no other sovereigns, someone interrupted. You're the last one. Silence. Alara's expression flickered. Pain, quickly hidden. I am the last pure sovereign, she said quietly. But sovereign magic isn't gone. It's dormant, hidden in bloodlines that don't know they carry it. If we can find those bloodlines, wake the magic. You're talking about experimenting on people, Torin said, forcing bonds on them to see if it works. I'm talking about giving people a choice between possible salvation and certain death. Alara's voice hardened. The corruption is coming, for all of us, and when it hits, you'll have 2 options. Bond with someone who might be able to save you, or die screaming as your magic eats you from the inside. The amphitheater went silent. Kyle watched the alphas process this, watched them calculate odds and weigh options and try to find a third path that didn't exist. Finally, an older alpha stood. Female, gray-haired, scars covering her arms. I'm Alpha Vera from Stormbreak territory, she said, and I believe you. Torin whipped around. Vera? We've lost 17 wolves to corruption in the last month, Vera continued. 17. Good wolves, strong wolves. They just changed, became those things. And we had to kill them because we had no other choice. Her eyes were haunted. If there's even a chance this bond could stop it, I have to try. You're talking about submitting to sovereign control, Torin said. I'm talking about survival. Vera looked at Alara. What do you need from us? Alara hesitated, then said, blood samples. From every pack, we need to test for dormant sovereign bloodlines. Find who might be compatible for bonding. And if we're not compatible? Another alpha asked. Then we find another way. Kale's voice was firm. The bond isn't the only solution. It's just the one we know works. But there might be others. Rituals, spells, techniques the original sovereigns used. We'll find them. In 6 days? Torin's laugh was bitter. You'll find ancient lost magic in 6 days? We'll try. Alara met his gaze. Or we'll die trying, because the alternative is watching everyone we care about turn into monsters. Silence stretched. Then slowly, other alphas stood. 1, 2, 5, 10. Not all of them. Not even most. But enough. We'll provide blood samples, Vera said, and access to our archives. Anything that might help. Thank you, Kyle said. Torin remained seated, his expression dark. This is a mistake. You're opening a door that should have stayed closed. And when it destroys you, when this bond you're so proud of turns toxic and eats you both alive, don't expect the rest of us to mourn. He stood and left, taking half the remaining alphas with him. The amphitheater emptied slowly, leaving Kale and Alara standing in the center with Darius and the few alphas who'd committed to helping. That went well. Darius said dryly. We got 10 packs, Kyle said. That's 10 more than we had yesterday. And 33 enemies. Alara's voice was tired. 33 alphas who now think we're trying to create a dictatorship. Let them think it. Kyle turned to the alphas who remained. Thank you, all of you, for trusting us. Don't thank us yet, Vera said. We're trusting you with our blood, our packs, our futures. If this goes wrong, it won't, Alara said. But even through the bond, Kyle felt her uncertainty. The testing took 3 days. 3 days of drawing blood, running tests, comparing DNA sequences against fragments of sovereign genetic markers. Alara barely remembered. They found 6. 6 wolves across the 10 packs who carried dormant sovereign bloodlines. Not strong, not active, but present. Can you wake it? Vera asked, watching Alara examine the test results. I think so. Alara's hand shook slightly. But I don't know what it'll do to them. The process of waking sovereign magic it's not gentle. Will it hurt? Yes. Alara met her eyes. It'll feel like dying, like everything they are is being ripped apart and rebuilt. Some might not survive. So it's a gamble. Everything's a gamble right now. Alara set down the papers. But if we can wake even a few bloodlines, if we can create even a few more hybrid bonds, we might have enough power to stop the corruption when it reaches critical mass. Which is in 3 days, Kyle added. Vera was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, One of the 6 is my daughter. Alara's breath caught. Alpha. Her name is Mira. She's 24, strong, brave, and she volunteered the moment she heard what we were doing. Vera's eyes were steady. If you need someone to test the awakening process on, use her. I can't ask you to You're not asking. Vera's voice was firm. I'm offering, because if this works, my daughter might be able to save her entire generation. And if it doesn't, her voice cracked slightly, then at least she died trying to do something that mattered. Alara looked at Kyle. Through the bond, he felt her terror, her absolute dread at the idea of experimenting on someone, of potentially killing an innocent person in pursuit of a theory. We'll do everything we can to keep her safe, Kyle said. I know you will. Vera stood. When do we start? Tomorrow, Alara said quietly. I need tonight to prepare, to make sure I understand the process. Vera nodded and left, leaving Kyle and Alara alone in the testing room, surrounded by blood samples and genetic sequences and the weight of choices that could save or destroy everything. I can't do this, Alara whispered. Yes, you can. What if I kill her? Her eyes were bright with unshed tears. What if I try to wake her magic and it just destroys her? Then we'll deal with it. Kyle moved closer. Together. I don't want to be responsible for another death. You're not responsible for what happened at the bonding rite. You're not responsible for your ancestors being hunted. You're not responsible for any of this. He cupped her face, forcing her to look at him. You're just trying to fix what other people broke. And yeah, it might not work. It might go horribly wrong. But at least we're trying. Is that enough? Her voice cracked. Trying? It's all we have. She leaned into his touch, and for a moment, they just stood there. 2 people tied together by bonds they didn't choose, carrying weight they never asked for, trying to save a world that mostly hated them. I'm scared, Alara admitted. So am I. What if we fail? Then we fail together. Kale's voice was steady. And at least we'll know we did everything we could. She pulled back, wiping her eyes. When did you get so philosophical? About the time a stubborn sovereign forced me to reevaluate my entire worldview. He smiled slightly. You're a bad influence. Good. She straightened her shoulders. Then let's go be bad influences together and wake some ancient magic. Mashan. Mira was brave. Braver than Alara. Braver than Kyle. Maybe braver than anyone in the room. She lay on the stone altar they'd prepared, her eyes clear, her hands steady, while Alara explained what was about to happen. The sovereign magic in your blood is dormant, Alara said, suppressed by generations of interbreeding with wolves. To wake it, I have to... She hesitated. Essentially, burn away the wolf magic surrounding it. Will I lose my wolf? Mira asked. I don't know. Alara's voice was honest. You might. Or the two magics might merge like they did with Kael and me. Or something completely different might happen. I've never done this before. Comforting. Mira's smile was slight. But I still want to try. Why? Kael asked. You could die. Painfully. Because my pack is dying anyway. Mira met his gaze. We've lost 23 wolves to corruption in 2 months. My best friend turned 3 days ago. I had to help hold her down while we... Her voice broke. I won't watch that happen to anyone else. Not if there's even a chance I can stop it. Alara's hands shook as she placed them on Mira's chest. This is going to hurt. I know. I mean really hurt. Like nothing you've ever felt. I know. Mira reached up and squeezed her hand. It's okay. I'm ready. Alara looked at Kael. He moved to stand beside her, his hand on her shoulder, ready to channel power through their bond if she needed it. Now, Mira said. Alara closed her eyes and let the magic flow. Silver light poured from her hands into Mira's chest. The girl gasped, her back arching, her eyes going wide. Through the bond, Kael felt what Alara was doing. Felt her magic diving deep into Mira's bloodstream, searching for the dormant sovereign markers buried under layers of wolf DNA. Found them. And burned. Mira screamed. It was a sound that would haunt Kael for the rest of his life. Pure agony, the kind of pain that broke people. But Mira didn't break. She held on as Alara's magic tore through her genetics, ripping away wolf markers, exposing sovereign bloodlines, forcing ancient power to wake after centuries of sleep. Her body convulsed. Blood poured from her nose. Her eyes rolled back. And then, silver light exploded from her chest, not the soft glow of Alara's controlled magic. This was wild, untamed, raw power that hadn't been regulated in 200 years. Kael! Alara shouted. I need you. He understood instantly, moved forward, bit into his wrist and pressed the wound to Mira's mouth. Drink, he commanded. Alpha voice. Absolute authority. Mira's jaw moved automatically, her body obeying even as her mind was lost to the transformation. She drank, and the wild sovereign magic met alpha blood. The explosion should have killed everyone in the room. Instead, it stabilized. The silver and gold merged, braiding together, creating the same hybrid magic that connected Kael and Alara. Mira's screaming stopped. Her convulsions slowed. Her eyes opened, and they were silver. Holy shit, Darius breathed from the doorway. Mira sat up slowly, looking at her hands, at the silver light flickering around them, at the power she could feel coursing through her veins. It worked, she whispered. Vera stepped forward, her face pale. Mira, baby, are you? I'm okay, Mom. Mira's voice sounded different, layered, like Alara's had when she first woke her magic. I'm better than okay. She looked at Kael and Alara. I'm like you. They had 2 days left when the corruption hit. Not gradually, not in isolated cases. All at once. Reports came in from every territory, wolves turning by the dozens, by the hundreds, entire packs going dark as the disease spread through their bonds. The amphitheater became a war room. Kael stood at the center, surrounded by maps covered in red markers indicating corrupted territories, while alphas shouted over each other. We need to evacuate. We need to quarantine. We need to kill them all before it spreads. Enough, Kael's voice cut through the chaos. We're not killing our own people. We're saving them. How? Torin had returned, his earlier hostility replaced by desperate fear. You've woken one bloodline. One. There are thousands infected. Do the math. The math says we're fucked, Darius said bluntly. Unless we find the source. The source? Vera asked. Selinar said the corruption started where the first sovereign died. Alara moved to the map. Where the balance was broken. If we can find that place, seal the wound, the corruption stops, Kael finished. Do you know where it is? Torin demanded. No, Alara's voice was tight. The records were destroyed, deliberately. Someone didn't want us finding it. Your father, Kael said quietly. Every eye turned to him. Marcus spent 40 years studying sovereign history, collecting artifacts, burning anything that pointed to uncomfortable truths. Kale's jaw clenched. If anyone knows where the first sovereign died, it's him. He's exiled, Darius said. We don't know where he went. I do. Kale moved to the window. There's a cabin, north border. He built it years ago. Called it his retreat. If he's anywhere, he's there. Then we get him, Elara said. Now. Kale looked at her. Through the bond, he felt her determination, her willingness to face the man who'd orchestrated her entire life just to get the information they needed. Together? He asked. Together. The cabin was exactly where Kale remembered it. Small. Isolated. Surrounded by forests so dense even wolves got lost in it. Marcus sat on the porch, looking older than he had a week ago. The exile had aged him, or maybe he'd just stopped hiding it. I wondered when you'd come, he said as Kyle and Elara approached. We need information, Kyle said flatly. Of course you do. Marcus's smile was bitter. The corruption's reaching critical mass, and you've finally realized I'm the only one who knows how to stop it. Where did the first sovereign die? Elara demanded. Marcus looked at her, really looked, and something in his expression shifted. You woke another bloodline. We woke one. We'll wake more if we survive this. Elara's voice was hard. Where did she die? Why should I tell you? Marcus leaned back. You exiled me, stripped me of my title, made me irrelevant. Give me one reason to help you. Because you're still a wolf, Kyle said quietly. And wolves protect their pack, even when the pack doesn't deserve it. Marcus's jaw clenched. You always were too idealistic. Learned it from my mother. Kale met his father's gaze. She used to say that strength without compassion is just cruelty. I didn't understand what she meant until now. Your mother was weak. That's why she died. My mother was strong enough to love you even when you were a monster. Kale's voice didn't rise. That takes more strength than anything you've ever done. Silence stretched. Finally, Marcus stood. The Blackstone Wastes, 300 miles east, that's where Selinar Vex died, where the wolves cornered her and ripped her apart while she was trying to seal the corruption herself. You know this how? Elara asked. Because I was there. Marcus's voice was empty. Not me personally, but my grandfather. He led the hunting party, and he passed down the location because he wanted future generations to remember what we'd accomplished. His laugh was hollow. Turns out he was just documenting our own destruction. Kale felt something crack in his chest. You knew. All this time, you knew the corruption started because we killed Selinar, and you never tried to fix it? I tried to manage it. Marcus's eyes were hard. Tried to keep it contained. Tried to make sure no sovereign ever rose again to throw the balance further off. That's why I needed to control Elara. Why I needed... He stopped. It doesn't matter now. It does matter, Elara said. Because you failed. And now we have to fix what you broke. You can't fix this, Marcus's voice was certain. The wound where Selinar died, it's been festering for 2 centuries. The corruption isn't just spreading, it's sentient. It wants to consume everything wolf-related, and the only way to stop it is to give it what it wants. Which is? Kale asked. Marcus looked at Elara. A sovereign, alive, willingly sacrificed at the point of origin. That's the only way to close the wound, to restore balance. The words hit like a physical blow. No, Kale said immediately. It's the truth. Marcus's voice was flat. Selinar tried to seal it and failed because she was dying, murdered. But if a sovereign willingly gives their life, gives their magic back to the source, it might work. Might? Elara's voice shook. I don't have better answers. Marcus looked at them both. This is what I've been trying to prevent. Why I wanted to control you instead of killing you. Because I knew the day would come when we'd need a sovereign to sacrifice themselves. And I wanted to make sure you'd do it. Kyle moved before he realized it. His fist connected with Marcus's jaw, and the older man went down hard. She's not dying for your mistakes, Kyle snarled. Then everyone dies. Marcus spit blood. Those are the options. One sovereign or every wolf in existence. Do the math. Alara stepped between them, her hand on Kael's chest. Stop. He's suggesting you kill yourself. I know what he's suggesting. She looked at Marcus. Is there any other way? No. You're lying, Kael said. There has to be. There isn't. Marcus stood slowly. I've spent 40 years researching this, looking for alternatives. There aren't any. The corruption wants sovereign magic. It'll keep spreading until it either gets it or consumes everything. Alara was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, How long do I have? Alara, no. How long? Her voice was steady. A day. Maybe less. Marcus met her gaze. The corruption will reach critical mass tomorrow at dawn. After that, it'll spread too fast to contain. Then we leave tonight. She turned to Kael. Gather whoever wants to come. We end this at the Blackstone Wastes. You're not sacrificing yourself, Kael said. That's not your choice. Like hell it isn't. He grabbed her shoulders. We're bonded. Blood and magic and mate connection. If you die, I die. That's how this works. Then we die together. Her eyes were silver and sad and absolutely certain. Better than watching everyone else die instead. Through the bond, Kael felt her resolve, her acceptance, her willingness to end her own story if it meant saving everyone else's. And he made a decision. No, he said quietly. Kael, I said no. He pulled her closer. You're not dying. I'm not dying. We're going to the Blackstone Wastes, and we're going to find another way. There is no other way, so... Then we'll make one. His voice was absolute. Because I didn't spend a week falling in love with you just to watch you die. The words hung in the air. Alara stared at him. What did you say? Kael's heart hammered. He hadn't meant to say it, hadn't even realized it was true until the words left his mouth. But it was true. Somewhere between the rejection and the rescue and the bond that tied them together, he'd fallen completely in love with the stubborn, powerful, broken woman standing in front of him. I love you, he said again, clearer. And I'm not losing you. Alara's eyes filled with tears. Kael, we don't have a choice. We always have a choice. He pressed his forehead to hers. We choose to fight. We choose to find another way. We choose to survive. Together. And if we can't, then we go down swinging. He pulled back enough to meet her eyes. But I'm not letting you sacrifice yourself without trying every other option first. She laughed through her tears. You're insane. Probably. He kissed her, soft, brief, a promise. But I'm your kind of insane. Marcus watched them with an expression Kael couldn't read. You really love her, the older man said quietly. Yeah. Even though she's a sovereign, even though the bond was manipulated, even though, Kael said firmly, she's my mate, my partner, my equal, and I'd burn the entire wolf world to ash before I let anyone hurt her again. Marcus nodded slowly. Then you're stronger than I ever was. The Blackstone Wastes lived up to their name. Miles of scorched earth, shattered rock, air so thick with corruption it felt like breathing poison. At the center, a crater a mile wide, and at the bottom of that crater, a wound, not physical, not something that could be touched, but Kael felt it anyway. A tear in reality itself where Selinar Vex had died trying to contain the corruption she'd accidentally created. They stood at the edge, Kael, Alara, Darius, Mira, Vera, and 10 other wolves who'd volunteered for what was probably a suicide mission. It's worse than I thought, Alara whispered. The wound pulsed with dark energy. Around it, corrupted wolves circled, hundreds of them, thousands. All the cases they'd heard about, all the infected warriors from every territory. And in the center, sitting on a throne made of twisted bone and shadow, a figure, humanoid, female, but wrong. Her skin was black as night, her eyes glowed red, and when she spoke, her voice echoed like a chorus of the dead. Finally, she said, the last sovereign comes to me. Who are you? Alara demanded. I am what remains of Selinar Vex. The figure stood. Or rather, I am her corruption, her rage, her pain. Everything she felt as the wolves tore her apart, given form and purpose. You're not real, Kael said. You're just a manifestation. I am more real than anything you've ever known. The corrupted Selinar smiled. And I have been waiting 200 years for one of her bloodline to return, so I can finish what she started. Which is? Elara asked. Revenge. The word echoed across the wastes. The wolves destroyed my kind, killed us, erased us, made us nothing. So I will return the favor. I will corrupt every wolf in existence, turn them into the monsters they always were. And then, when they're all mine, I will make them destroy each other. That's insane, Darius said. That's justice. The corrupted Selinar's eyes fixed on Elara. But you can stop it. You know how. Your predecessor Marcus told you. All you have to do is step into the wound, give yourself to me, let your magic seal what was broken. And if I refuse, Elara asked, then I spread. And by tomorrow, every wolf in this world will be corrupted, turned into my servants, used to destroy everything they love. The corrupted Selinar tilted her head. But you won't refuse because you're like her, like Selinar, willing to sacrifice yourself for people who don't deserve it. Elara took a step forward. Kyle grabbed her arm. Don't. I have to. No, you don't. He pulled her back. There's another way. There isn't? Yes, there is. He looked at the corrupted Selinar. You want sovereign magic to seal the wound. You don't care where it comes from. So what if we give you 2 sources instead of 1? The corrupted Selinar's eyes narrowed. What are you suggesting? A hybrid seal. Kale's voice was steady. Sovereign magic and alpha blood, woven together, strong enough to close the wound without killing anyone. That's impossible, is it? Kale gestured to Elara. We've done the impossible already, merged 2 types of magic that shouldn't coexist, created bonds that weren't supposed to exist. If we can do that, if we can pour that hybrid power into the wound, it might be enough. Might, the corrupted Selinar repeated, or it might kill you both and accomplish nothing. Then we die trying. Kale looked at Elara. Together, like we promised. Through the bond, he felt her shock, her fear, her desperate hope that he was right. It could work, she said slowly. Or it could destroy everything, the corrupted Selinar said. The wound wants purity, sovereign magic alone, not this mongrel hybrid you've created. The wound wants balance, Elara countered, and balance requires 2 sides, wolf and sovereign, life and death, power and restraint. She moved to stand beside Kael. We can give you that, but only if we do it together. The corrupted Selinar studied them. Then she laughed. You're going to try anyway, regardless of what I say, because you're in love, and love makes people stupid. Love makes people strong, Kael said quietly. We'll see. The corrupted Selinar gestured to the wound. Go ahead. Pour your precious hybrid magic into my prison. Let's find out which of us is right. Elara looked at Kael. If this doesn't work, it'll work. But if it doesn't, then I'm glad I got to spend my last moments with you. He took her hand. Ready? No? She squeezed his fingers. But let's do it anyway. They walked forward together, down the crater's slope, past the circling corrupted wolves, toward the wound that pulsed with malevolent energy. And as they reached the edge, Kael felt the bond between them flare. Not painful, not toxic, pure. Now, Elara said. They stepped into the wound together. Power exploded, silver and gold, light and shadow. Sovereign magic and alpha blood pouring into the tear in reality, trying to seal what had been broken for 200 years. The wound fought back. It tried to consume them, tried to corrupt their magic, tried to turn them into more fuel for its endless hunger. But the hybrid bond held. Kael and Elara clung to each other as the wound pulled at them, their hands locked, their minds merged through the bond, their power woven so tightly together that the wound couldn't separate them. And slowly, agonizingly, the tear began to close. The corrupted Selinar screamed, "No, you can't, this isn't—" But her voice was fading, because as the wound sealed, the corruption lost its anchor, lost its source, lost the power that had sustained it for 2 centuries. The corrupted wolves around the crater collapsed, not dying, not turning back, just stopping. The red faded from their eyes. The disease burned out of their systems. And in the center of it all, Kyle and Alara stood at the heart of a closing wound, their bodies blazing with combined magic, their souls so intertwined that it was impossible to tell where one ended and the other began. The wound sealed completely. Silence fell. Kyle opened his eyes. He was still standing, still breathing, still alive. And Alara was in his arms, unconscious but breathing, her eyes closed, her face peaceful. Through the bond, he felt her heartbeat. Steady, strong. They'd survived, both of them. Impossible, someone whispered. Kale looked up. The corrupted wolves were waking, confused, scared, but whole, themselves again, and standing at the edge of the craters. Every alpha who'd refused to help. Every wolf who'd called them a threat. Every voice that had demanded Alara's death. All of them staring in silence at what Kyle and Alara had done. The corruption is gone, Vera said softly. I can feel it. The disease. It's just gone. They did it, Mira breathed. They actually did it. Darius moved down the slope, his eyes bright. Kyle, you okay? Yeah. Kale's voice was rough. He looked down at Alara. We're okay. She stirred in his arms, blinked, focused on his face. Did we die? She asked. No. He laughed, exhausted, relieved, almost hysterical. We lived, both of us. How? Because we're too stubborn to die separately. He kissed her forehead, and too in love to die at all. She smiled, actually smiled. You said you loved me. I did. Did you mean it? Every word. Good. She reached up and pulled him down for a proper kiss. Because I love you too, even though you're an idiot, even though you rejected me and tried to kill me and bound me with blood magic without asking. I'm an idiot, he agreed. The biggest. She kissed him again. But you're my idiot. Around them, the crater was filling with wolves. Alphas and warriors and healed corrupted victims, all staring at the couple who'd saved them. Torin was among them. He approached slowly, his expression unreadable. You were right, he said quietly. The hybrid bond, the balance, all of it. I was wrong to fight you. You were scared, Alara said. We all were. Are, Torin corrected. I'm still scared, because what you've created, what you've become, it changes everything. The hierarchy, the power structure, the entire world we've built. I know. Kale stood, helping Alara to her feet. But change isn't always bad. Sometimes it's necessary. And sometimes it's terrifying. Torin met his gaze. But I'm willing to try, to see if this new world you're building is better than the old one. He knelt, not in submission, in respect. Around the crater, other alphas did the same, one by one, until every wolf present was kneeling before the bonded pair who'd saved them all. Kyle looked at Alara. What do we do now? We rebuild. Her voice was steady. We find the other dormant bloodlines. We wake them. We create more hybrid bonds. We build a world where sovereigns and wolves work together instead of destroying each other. And if they refuse, Vera asked, then we convince them. Alara's eyes blazed silver, because the alternative is extinction, and I didn't survive this long just to watch everything burn. She turned to face the assembled alphas. We're not your rulers, she said. We're not your conquerors. We're your partners, your equals. And if you'll let us, we'll help you build something better than what came before. And if we won't let you, someone called out. Kyle stepped forward, his hand finding Alara's. Then we'll build it anyway, because this isn't about permission. It's about survival, about making sure no one else has to suffer like we did, like our ancestors did, like every corrupted wolf did. He looked out at the sea of faces. We're offering you a choice, he said. Accept the hybrid bond. Work with us to create balance, or refuse and watch as everything we've built crumbles without it. But understand this. We're not going away. We're not hiding. We're not apologizing for existing. His voice dropped to something fierce. We're here. We're bonded. We're powerful. And we're going to change this world whether you like it or not. Silence. Then, Applause. Slow at first, then building, until the entire crater echoed with the sound of wolves celebrating what they'd just witnessed. Celebrating survival, celebrating change, celebrating the end of a 200-year war that had almost destroyed them all. Kael looked at Alara, and through the bond he felt her joy, her relief, her exhaustion and hope and love all tangled together. "We did it," she whispered. "We did it," he agreed. "What now?" He smiled. "Now we figure out how to live with what we've become." "Together?" "Always together." She leaned into him, and for a moment they just stood there. Two people who'd been broken and rejected and manipulated into becoming something neither of them wanted. And somehow, against all odds, they'd become something better. Not perfect, not uncomplicated, but real. And that was enough. Itik. 6 months later. The new council chamber was built into the ruins where Alara had first found the crown, not as a monument to the past, as a promise for the future. 15 alphas sat at a circular table, beside each one, a newly awakened sovereign, hybrid bonded, balanced, working together to rebuild what had been shattered. Kael stood at the window, watching the sun set over territory that no longer belonged to just wolves or just sovereigns. It belonged to both. Still brooding, Alara slipped her arms around him from behind. Thinking, he turned, pulling her closer, about how different things are now. Better different or worse different. Jury's still out, but he was smiling. We've got 16 territories fully converted to the hybrid system, 23 still resisting, and about 47 that are undecided. So we're winning. Slowly, he kissed her. How's Mira doing? Good. Her bond with Alpha Theron is stable. They're actually kind of adorable together. Alara laughed. Who knew the biggest, scariest alpha in the north would turn into a complete softie when bonded to a sovereign? Maybe that's the secret. Kael's voice was quiet. The bonds don't just balance power. They balance us. Make us better than we were alone. Are you better? She looked up at him. Honestly? He thought about it. About the wolf he'd been 6 months ago. Arrogant, controlled, terrified of vulnerability. About the choices he'd made, the people he'd hurt. About the woman in his arms who'd forgiven him for all of it. Yeah, he said finally. I'm better. Because of you. Good answer. She pulled him down for a kiss. Now come on. The council's about to start, and we need to... A commotion outside interrupted her. They moved to the window. In the courtyard below, wolves were gathering. Hundreds of them. From territories across the world. And at the front, Marcus. Kael's breath caught. His father looked older, grayer, but there was something different in his eyes. Something that hadn't been there 6 months ago. Remorse. What's he doing here? Alara asked. I don't know. Kael headed for the door. By the time they reached the courtyard, Marcus was kneeling. Not in submission, in apology. I came to make amends, he said quietly, for what I did, for the wolves I hurt, for the sovereigns I hunted, for... His voice cracked. For the son I manipulated and the woman I tried to destroy. Kael stared at him. Through the bond, he felt Alara's uncertainty, her anger, but also underneath it, something that might have been understanding. Why now? Kael asked. Kael. Because I've spent 6 months watching what you've built. Marcus looked up. Watching you create something better than anything I ever managed. And I realized... He stopped. Tried again. I realized I was wrong. About everything. And I need you to know that. An apology doesn't erase what you did, Alara said. I know. Marcus's voice was steady. But it's a start. If you'll let it be. Kael looked at Alara. Through the bond, they held a conversation without words. He hurt us. He did. Can we forgive that? I don't know. Can we? Maybe. Eventually. If he proves he's changed, and if he hasn't, then we deal with it together. Kael turned back to his father. You can stay, for now. But you're not pack. You're not council. You're a guest. And if you ever threaten what we've built, I'll exile you permanently. I understand. Marcus stood slowly. Thank you. He left. The courtyard slowly emptied. leaving Kael and Alara alone under a sky painted gold and purple by the setting sun. That was hard, she said. Yeah. Are you okay? I will be. He pulled her closer. As long as I have you. Always. She kissed him, soft, sweet, a promise that had nothing to do with magic or bonds or power. Just love. I never thought I'd end up here, she admitted. 6 months ago, I was nobody, a wolfless orphan everyone pitied. Now I'm a sovereign, Kael said. A leader. The woman who saved the entire wolf world. Our world, she corrected. Not just wolf, not just sovereign. Ours. Ours, he agreed. They stood there as the sun set completely, painting everything silver and gold, colors that used to represent division. Now they represented unity. The rejected girl and the future alpha king who'd rejected her, bonded, balanced, building something new from the ashes of everything that had tried to destroy them. It wasn't a perfect ending, but it was real. And sometimes, real was better than perfect.